We'll switch direction through tonight to more of a southwesterly direction. So more western areas, see more cloud, a bit of a stronger breeze and a risk of showers through the day. But in the east, temperatures will climb towards the mid-teens, so a little bit warmer, but still a bit disappointing for the time of year. Now, Friday brings further showers. Potentially some quite heavy downpours will develop from the south, bringing outbreaks of heavy rain by the end of the day. It is a little bit uncertain, though, so it's something to keep an eye on. It does stay relatively unsettled through the weekend as well. Mild for a time on Saturday, but otherwise generally quite cool.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's a totally tax-free £76,543.21 in cash to be won. Cash to spend on anything you like. That's like having over £6,000 extra to spend each month for a whole year. You could spend it on a bucket list holiday, treats for all of the family, or just save it for a rainy day. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and they say, we saw you on television. I say, oh yes, on what? On GB News.
Hello, are you the famous Sue? The whole crew hid me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here, right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again.
You just tuned in. Where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Breaking
evening, good morning from Washington, D.C. This is Bev Turner on GB News with the stories shaping Great Britain and the United States of America tonight.
They want to make a deal. We've had very good talks over the last 24 hours, and it's very possible that we'll make a deal. Yeah.
We understand that the Iranians are considering an agreement that with the USA that would include tougher demands on uranium enrichment. But will any compromise from the US look like weakness? We're going to speak to Late Show favourite Bianca Della Garza on why this is a good deal. Plus,
what do you think they would do if they had a nuclear weapon? They would hold the world hostage with that nuclear weapon.
yesterday's Marco Rubio performance at the White House press briefing. It was his first one, standing in space of Caroline Leavitt. It was outstanding, and he was at pains to express how important it is to stop Iran developing a nuclear bomb. But will this new deal make that an impossibility? I'll try to find out. Also, breaking tonight, 2 people who returned to the UK from the cruise ship hit by the Hantavirus outbreak have been told to self-isolate. That's according to the UK Health Security Agency. But they say that the risk to the general public remains very low. Do you believe them? And
the idea that there would be life on other planets that may be visited here would not at all shock or surprise me. Have you ever looked into it?
We're looking at it.
You might want to lock your doors and windows. The head of the FBI has said that they are poised to release the alien files. I'm going to speak to a UFO expert about whether this is just a distraction or are we really going to learn the truth, finally, about alien life forms. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in Washington, my panel, Democratic strategist Richard Goodstein is here. Evening, Richard.
Great to be here.
And reporter at Reason Magazine, Reem Ibrahim.
Hey,
We're still getting used to having you here in America, Reem, when you used to be down the line, of course, in Paddington, and in London, broadcaster and commentator Christo Foufas is gracing us with his presence this evening. Christo, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. How are you, Bev?
Yeah, we're all very good, very good. We're excited to get stuck into some alien watching, maybe. I don't know. I think maybe it's a boy thing, the alien thing, but anyway.
I believe in aliens.
Do you believe in aliens?
Yes, I do.
Well, we might all believe in them eventually, but I don't know. I'm just sensing a dead cat, maybe. The governments like to throw these things, don't they, in our way when there's something they don't want you to talk about. Anyway, moving on this evening. Let me know at home what you think. gbnews.com/your say. Tonight there are reports that America and Iran are closing in on a deal which is in the form of a one-page memo. The White House is expecting a response within 48 hours, apparently, according to the news website Axios. And among the provisions are Iran committing to a moratorium on nuclear enrichment, the US agreeing to lift its sanctions on Iran and release billions in frozen Iranian funds, and both sides lifting restrictions around transit through the Strait of Hormuz. This was President Trump earlier today.
In the world of war a few days ago, no, they want to make a deal badly. And we'll see if we get there. If we get there, they can't have nuclear weapons. You know, it's very simple. But what's not to submit? So they had a Navy with 159 ships, and now every ship is blown to pieces and lying at the bottom of the water. They had an Air Force, lots of planes, and they don't have any planes. They don't have any anti-aircraft. They don't have any radar left. Their missiles are mostly decimated. They have some. They have probably 19%, but not a lot by comparison to what they had. And their leaders are all dead. So I think we won. Now it's only a question of, look, if we left right now Iran, it would take them 20 years to rebuild. You would call that, we're in good shape, right?
Fantastic shape.
We're in good shape. And now we're doing well. Now we have to get what we have to get. If we don't do that, we'll have to go a big step further. But with that being said, they want to make a deal. We've had very good talks over the last 24 hours, and it's very possible that we'll make a deal. Yeah.
I'm joined now by Newsmax's Bianca Della Garza. Bianca, very good evening. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Always a pleasure.
Now, I watched Marco Rubio in Hi, great to see you. I watched Marco Rubio yesterday in the press briefing, and first of all, I thought he was outstanding in place of Caroline Leavitt while she's off on maternity leave. He was at pains, Bianca, to keep stressing time and time again that this conflict is about stopping Iran ever having nuclear military capabilities. Do you think, from looking at what we know about this deal, because we haven't had the detail as such, that this will make that a permanent resolution, that Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb?
I think that's always been President Trump's message, even before the conflict began, Bev. So I think that is a red line that has to be baked into the cake with this deal. And we're hearing now, I mean, not only is it no enriched uranium, there's also reporting that they would have to turn over or have the ability, the United States, to go in and get all enriched material. So this is an improved deal, because I know a lot of people are saying, what's different from Barack Obama's JCPOA? Well, JCPOA took 20 months to negotiate. Here we have a deal coming together in about 70 days since the conflict began. And also, under Barack Obama's deal, they were just capping enrichment. So I do believe the ability for the administration to get this, and again, if we're cautiously optimistic, will actually put a cap on nuclear enrichment. And with all the destruction that we've seen to their nuclear capabilities, senior officials, their scientists, I think it would give them the best odds right now globally the world has ever seen for them to be basically decimated in that way to ever get their back up and running to produce a nuclear weapon.
And how has he done this? How has President Trump and his team managed to make this happen, Bianca, in such a short period of time, from your perspective?
You know, President Trump obviously has a very way of communicating that some think is too bombastic. We've covered, of course, the truth socials on Easter Sunday, where there was a lot of concern about the way he worded entire civilizations would be gone. He's just so unpredictable, and he doesn't really show his hand. So I think in a way, as we know, Iran has also continued their attacks, continued with the fast boats. Even in the past few days, there was questions, is there really a ceasefire with these fast boats that CENTCOM says they destroyed? I think his style of diplomacy, and also tying in now some pressure on China, he's been able to sort of triangulate and isolate Iran to a way I don't think they ever felt before, say, under Obama.
I was interested to see how Marco Rubio delivered the messaging around Iran yesterday in the briefing room, and how different that is to President Trump's delivery of the messaging. And just different, not necessarily better, but different, in that President Trump says, well, we've won, whereas Rubio was saying, we've finished Operation Epic Fury. That section is done. That stage of this conflict is done. And so he delivers this news in a slightly more measured manner that I think means that it leaves them space to still make changes going forward, and it gives them that breathing space so that they can accept certain compromises, maybe, without it looking like weakness.
And walk away without President Trump, unconditional surrender, right, was what President Trump had said. I'm glad you brought up Marco Rubio in the press briefing. I, too, watched it live during my broadcast. And I also think, and this is noteworthy, the message he was sending, where this is more of a global concern. We cannot allow Iran to control the Strait of Hormuz. If we set this precedent, think of all the other choke points and waterways in the Persian Gulf that they will think that they can control via their proxies. So I think Marco framed it in a way where it was more of, these are terrorists, they are controlling a strait, or are trying to, control the strait, that we have to never allow this. And he even dragged in how the UN was going to put on sanctions. So he kind of pulled out a little, right? Instead of just saying, okay, Iran, he said, hey, world, it's us against them.
Now, is the reason, therefore, that President Trump doesn't do that as keenly partly because he knows the MAGA base put him there for America first, whereas Marco has a little bit more leeway to, as you say, to pull the focus back a little bit and talk about it from a global perspective? Would President Trump benefit from talking in those terms, do you think? Would it help with his voter base, or is he sticking to the message that he was elected to achieve?
I think there's no one who can convince Donald Trump not to speak the way he feels like any time of the day, any hour of the night, or when he's picking up the phone talking to his cabinet members. I think for Marco Rubio, there's sort of this, position where he is Secretary of the State, although of course he has other roles as well, and playing White House press secretary yesterday in that role. We know there's many themes about that, but no, I think that everyone in this administration articulates it differently. As we saw J.D. Vance on the ground in Pakistan, very forceful, but obviously academic, trained, military, former Marine, also Yale attorney. So their messaging is just inherently going to be different because of the way these men are. But I don't think it would serve Donald Trump to change any strategy on how he communicates. But you and I both know, and I know you've done some great sit-down interviews with the president. He's going to do what he's going to do here, President Trump, and no one's going to tell him which way he does it. And that, I think, is part of his relatability and authenticity, that the people who love him so much for that, and the people who don't, they're not going to see anything change. And he was asked about the Pope again today as well.
What did he say on that? I missed that section today.
Well, Marco Rubio is going to meet with Pope Leo at the Vatican tomorrow, and he was asked today in the Oval Office, what do you think? And President Trump says, I think that Iran can never get a nuclear weapon. And I think the Pope was saying they can, and they can't. They can never get a nuclear weapon. So it kind of puts it all full circle to where we started the segment. I don't think there's going to be more provocations with the Pope, but it goes back to they cannot have a nuclear weapon. So again, never a dull moment with this administration. We don't know where this week will lead. But he did say he thinks that this deal could get done within the week, Bev. Within the week. So there is kind of a anticipation.
Yeah. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Bianca, great to see you. Bianca De La Garza there from Newsmax. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ben.
Let me go to my panel on this, Reem. When you're listening to that conversation there, within a week we might have this deal ended, done. I'd be delighted. I really, I love talking to Bianca, but I think we all just want to move on from Iran.
We do want to move on. So what we've heard is that there is this 14-page memorandum of understanding, is what it's being called. I think the story was broken by Axios, where effectively there's 14 points, and this is a memorandum of understanding. This could potentially be the framework for the end of the war. Bianca very eloquently pointed out that this would obviously also eliminate their nuclear enrichment program, which is obviously what Trump is saying that he wants to happen. But I do think when we're looking at the last few weeks of the war, just how much American taxpayer money has been spent, whether or not this particular deal, if it even is actually negotiated, if it even is accepted. There was a Iranian parliamentarian who was saying that this is a wish list. It's a wish list and we're not going to accept it. Now, it's my understanding that Pakistani mediators are currently looking at it as well, so we'll see if they encourage them to end this and accept the supposed deal, but it doesn't really look as though this has been a whopping success that Trump supposedly wanted it to be.
What do you think, Richard? You're not going to say it's a success in any way, shape or form, are you?
Regrettably, I'm not. So, how many times have we heard about X number of point deals for months now? I mean, this is not the first time we've heard about a 14, 15-point plan, none of which we've actually seen. We've heard these reports, and Axios isn't eyeballing these. They're getting them from people in the Trump administration who know that Axios is reliable about putting out their party line. I'm reminded of being here several months ago when we were talking about Greenland, and supposedly there was a deal there, and you said, well, how's it feel Trump's won Greenland? Well, he didn't, with all due respect. And I feel like we're there now. If the question is this going to be over in a week? I will bet anybody, you too, watching this show, that's a fantasy. That's just not in the cards. I mean, Bianca said, well, it took Obama 20 months to hammer out the nuclear deal. There's a reason these things take a long time, and the notion that somehow in a week that we're going to get this done is fantasy. Just a reminder, the Obama nuclear deal, the first line said, Iran will never possess a nuclear weapon. And my forecast is we'll be lucky to get out of this with something akin to that. The difference is, remember that we're talking about pallets of money that Obama gave? There's going to be many, many more pallets of money going to the Iranians this time relative to Obama.
It also sounds as though we're not actually going to get regime change, which I think that, when we saw towards the end of last year all of the protests, the Iranian regime brutally murdering 40,000 of their own people, the entire aspect of the Trump administration where they're saying what we want is regime change, we're going to go in if the Iranian government don't stop killing their own people, and yet it sounds as though we potentially might have an even more radically Islamist regime in Iran. So in terms of what's best for the Iranian people, clearly this war has probably made things a lot worse.
When Trump said help is on the way, I don't think if you're an Iranian who basically says, this is a stacked deck against me. I have no economic opportunity. I'm a woman. I really have no opportunity. There's no freedom. But I don't think they feel any better today than they did on March 27th.
We're not able,
February.
But we don't know that yet, do we? We don't know what that regime change might look like. I think there's definite stages here. We bring Christo in on this as well down the line in London. There's obviously phases here, and as Rubio was keen to point out yesterday, the obliteration militarily is done. So we've done that now. Now we're on Operation Economic Fury. We've got to sort out the Strait of Hormuz. We cannot be held hostage by Iran in that strait of water. And he said not just America, the rest of the world. You cannot set the precedent that rogue regimes decide that they just can own a stretch of water and charge people to cross it. And if you don't, you will be blown up by the landmines or the water mines that we've placed in that position. And don't we all owe a debt of thanks if America is going to do that on behalf of the rest of the world, Christo?
Yes, I think that getting the Strait of Hormuz open would be, just absolutely a goal that is worthy and needs to happen as soon as possible. I think that what Trump... I've not got Trump derangement syndrome, and I have had egg on my face before where I've rolled my eyes and questioned Venezuela and questioned Donald Trump and thought, what is he saying? And then actually there's ended up being some method to his madness. So actually, I say cautiously that actually if he pulls off a deal that says they will never have nuclear weapons, not limiting their nuclear resources, but never, that would be going further than the Obama deal. The issue, I think, with the Strait of Hormuz, though, is that I don't think, and this is just my analysis, I may be wrong, I'm not sure that the Trump administration banked on Iran having that power over the Strait of Hormuz, and I don't think there appeared to be a strategy in place about what would happen if they decided to do exactly what they did. And I'm worried, my worry is, and I may well end up being wrong, that actually this will empower Iran at the end of all of this to say, well, actually, look, we managed to cause such economic chaos by blocking the Strait of Hormuz, and that was something that they didn't know so much that they could do before, and actually they never did it before because of the threat of violence from America. Well, now America have carried out that threat and Iran went ahead. So that's my worry. However, as I said, Trump has surprised me before where I thought, what's going on here? There doesn't seem to be a plan. And then actually the plan comes together and their scattergun approach of throwing out all sorts of threats actually works.
Yeah, I think there's always a plan. I genuinely do think, and even though people don't like necessarily President Trump's delivery, when you look at the people around him, look at the intelligence and the strategic vision of Marco Rubio. Those are the people that are working on this behind the scenes. And as he said in the briefing yesterday, what they have now is no navy. They have so little military capability. Richard, from that point of view, realising how degraded they are militarily today, that they weren't 10 weeks ago, surely that is a good thing for the West in and of itself.
No question. Look, to the extent to which this Iranian regime can be undermined economically and militarily is all to the good. But again, getting the Strait of Hormuz open was not the objective. on February 28th when this bombing started because it was open then. And we know that they didn't even anticipate that was a problem because the Secretary of Energy in Trump's own cabinet wasn't even brought into the process until 5 or 6 days into this war. So again, had they thought this through, they would have talked to the Secretary of Agriculture because fertilizer, I mean, the list goes on and on about what you would have done had you wanted to kind of do this in the best way possible. Again, I guess a week in, you said, Richard, if 3 weeks from now Trump's accomplished his objectives, will you give him credit? And I said, I will. Well, we're, what, 10 weeks in now? And I'm not sure how much closer we are to the end.
I think you are right, actually, in terms of the fact that they had underestimated how they would use the Strait of Hormuz to hold the rest of the world to ransom. Rubio almost admitted that yesterday because he said, if you look at what they're doing now with the Strait of Hormuz, how that is affecting multiple countries, how they're doing that with impunity, that they have no conscience about how that's even affecting their own people, he said, then just imagine what that regime would do with a nuclear bomb, how they would use it on other people, and they wouldn't care about the consequences on their own people. And I thought that was a very powerful point. Right, thank you guys for that kick-off. But still to come this evening on The Late Show Live, this.
What do you think they would do if they had a nuclear weapon? They would hold the world hostage with that nuclear weapon.
Well, we've just been talking about that, of course. That was Marco Rubio yesterday in his inaugural performance at the White House press briefing. Meanwhile, President Trump has said that a nuclear-armed Iran would have held the entire world hostage. We are going to talk to an Iranian expert next, but this is, I think, our last bit on Iran. So stay with us. We've got a lot more as well. Don't go anywhere.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GBNews, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
back to the Late Show Live. Now, yesterday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio stood in for White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. His performance was received very well. He emphasised why Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Have a listen.
What do you think they would do if they had a nuclear weapon? They would hold the world hostage with that nuclear weapon. That's what they would do. They would do exactly to the world with a nuclear weapon what they're doing now with the Straits. And I think the president's point is how anyone cannot see that as an unacceptable outcome and an unacceptable risk is beyond him. It's puzzling. And someone has to do something about it. The difference between this president and like the 6 presidents that preceded him were that he's the only one that's actually been willing to do something about it. Everyone says Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, but you got to do something about it at some point.
This afternoon here in Washington, D.C., President Trump repeated the warning that Iran with a nuclear weapon would hold the world hostage. Let's get the take of Iranian expert and editor-in-chief at the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, friend of the show, thank you so much for joining us again this evening. We just want to bottom out this issue now while we're talking about Iran at the top of the show. This deal and what we know of it, Lisa, how is it different, in your opinion, to the Obama agreement? And will it be a victory in terms of America?
It'll be a victory for the regime. And the reason I say that is because we don't even have to look at the details of the deal to know this. Any survival for this regime, no matter how badly they're degraded, if they survive, it's victory for them, because they will go back to spinning the centrifuges, to amassing the weapons, to amassing the missiles, to amassing the drones, to feeding their proxies, and to killing Iranians back at home. The foregone conclusion here is that there's no deal to be made, and I know that the Trump administration understands the nature of the regime that they are dealing with. What we are watching right now is this theater of war in which the regime has basically pivoted to the Strait of Hormuz. And I heard some of your panelists before focusing on the Strait of Hormuz. The bottom line is that for the United States, our strategic imperative is not the Strait of Hormuz, it's nuclear weapons. And that is the impetus with which we started this war. In the first hours of this war, Donald Trump laid out the goals, the agenda, and the reason for getting involved in this military campaign. The Strait of Hormuz was not listed in that, but what we do need to do is establish deterrence with this regime regarding the Strait of Hormuz, because it is what they believe is shielding them from dealing with the United States in a more serious matter regarding the nuclear weapons. Will they give up their program? No. Even if we have degraded them, which we have in places like Fordo or Isfahan or Natanz, we have set them back. But have we deleted their know-how? Have we taken away the motivation to have a deadly weapon, to use that deadly weapon? That then becomes the national security risk for the United States. So even if we end up opening up the Strait of Hormuz, that's not the victory for us. Even if we end up signing a deal with them, which we know they will break, they will shut off the IAEA surveillance cameras like they did in the past. They will move laterally to figure out loopholes to work around the deal. Sooner or later, they will have a weapon because that motivation is not gone.
So you sound really disappointed, Lisa, as we sit here now, kind of 10 weeks into this conflict. It looks as though a little bit of your optimism has ebbed away, if I can say that. And also, I imagine what is on your mind was Reem's point about the fact that the regime needs to change for the sake of the Iranian people, particularly the women, because I know you feel really strongly about that. Do you have any sense that America is going to achieve regime change?
I think there will be a collaborative effort between the Iranian people and America to achieve regime change. It might not be next week or next month, but no revolution ever occurred in 60 days. I don't know if you want to call Venezuela a revolution. We've removed one leader, and I don't like that comparison when people talk about Venezuela. Iran is not Venezuela, but the Iranian people know that this was the third option. And what I mean by that is for years, Democrats and Republicans had the same set of facts that President Trump had, but they never went to war with this regime. They always ping-ponged back and forth between bomb Iran or let Iran get the bomb, but neither one would get to the root of the issue. we want to get to the root of the issue, is that this regime, that is the foregone conclusion, that this regime has to be removed, because we have to remove this ideology. It's a deadly ideology that not only kills Iranians, not only kills the countries in the neighboring Persian Gulf states and Israel, but targets America, targets the West, targets Europe. We have to remove this ideology, and we have to remove this regime. Am I disappointed? No, I know that this will take time. I know that it takes patience. I know that the Iranian people are waiting by to have enough pressure on the regime so that they can start phase 2, which will then either, and what I mean by that is maximum pressure on the regime, and then maximum support for the Iranian people, where we will have mass defections, where we can somehow have an organization on the ground that can absorb the weapons and get them into the hands of the people, and then move into a regime change phase. We are nowhere near that right now, and I understand that. But right now, we are in a better place than we were on February 28th. I know a lot of people don't understand why that is, but it is true. The fact that they have been degraded, the fact that there is economic pressure on this regime that cannot be sustained as status quo. They cannot maintain this level of pressure. The fact that the Iranian people are waiting in the wings to take over their nation, they have the appetite to cause a revolution. I mean, all of these, they created that perfect storm, which started this war to begin with. So yes, it started with a different momentum. We're in a different place right now, but just because we have to pivot doesn't mean that this cannot be the same opportunity. This can't be the time that the Iranian people do reclaim their country.
Okay, Lisa, brilliant as always. Editor-in-Chief at the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari there. Thank you so much for your time, Lisa. Let me just get your reflections from my panel on this. I mean, echoing your point there, Reem, with Lisa saying you've got to change the regime, because that is what was... That was the aim in terms of helping out the Iranian people. And
yes, and it's also sort of what I think the Iranian people expect, right? I mean, when Trump said we're going to come and help you, that's what those people expected.
They were celebrating on the streets.
They were celebrating, I mean,
all around the world.
Can't underestimate, like 40,000 people being mowed down by the regime. Like, that is utterly disgraceful. It's disgusting. It's all of the terrible words you could think of. It's that, and yet, if we do not see regime change, all of those lives lost will have been in vain, because you didn't see that regime change. You didn't see democracy. You didn't see freedom for women specifically, who have been for far too long oppressed by an autocratic state.
Yeah, I'm almost surprised when we sit here tonight. I'm surprised that we didn't hear more from Secretary Rubio yesterday on that issue. Maybe it's because it's intractable.
No, it's intractable. Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to use. There really is no easy answer. You think about what in the history that we've experienced is analogous to this. Is it the fall of the Soviet Union? Maybe, right? Because that was something that seemed like impossible until it happened. But
it took almost a century.
Exactly, precisely. With all these wars that were fought in the kind of the pushback, and we saw these reports within the past couple of weeks about guns maybe finding their way into Iran somewhere, and I think Trump knocked that down. I mean, look, our hearts go out to the Iranian people because of what they've suffered, and I just don't think if you're really in their shoes, there's a lot to hope for right now.
Okay. Well, we have a lot more to hope for right now on the show this evening, because still to come, have a look at this. Breaking tonight, 2 people who returned to the UK from the cruise ship hit by this Hantavirus outbreak that we're hearing about. They've been told to self-isolate, according to the UK Health Security Agency. I'm going to be talking to travel expert and friend of GB News, Simon Calder, to discuss the impact of this on the holiday industry, particularly. Does it put you off going on a cruise? This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB Newsroom to every corner of Britain,
with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change.
From the first result to the inevitable aftermath. We'll be across it all. Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. tomorrow night, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Does Chopper need a coffee?
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've just been discussing our experiences of cruises. We'll talk to you about those in just a moment, because a British crew member evacuated from a virus-stricken cruise ship is in a stable condition following this Hantavirus outbreak on board. 3 people have died in the outbreak, while 3 others have been evacuated from the boat. And tonight, the UK Health Security Agency has confirmed that 2 Brits who were on the cruise ship but have now returned to the UK are self-isolating at home. The UKHSA said they are not currently exhibiting any symptoms of hantavirus, but their contacts on the journey home are being traced as a precaution. With me now is GP Dr. Kasim Usmani. First of all, tell me about this hantavirus, which, Kasim, none of us had heard of before this encounter. Just tell us what it is. It's a result of rat poo, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. Not many people have heard of the hantavirus, and you're absolutely right. So it's a virus that's associated with exposure to fecal matter or urine kind of viral particles from rats, usually from rodents in close proximity. So usually in agricultural areas, urban areas, or areas where rats have either infested, which may or may not have been on the boat itself.
And so what would the symptoms typically be of hantavirus?
Yeah, so the symptoms can be very vague, which makes it very difficult to differentiate it from a common flu or a cold. Initially, with the incubation period starting from 1 to 8 weeks, we would expect, once you've inhaled the viral particles, for you to develop flu-like symptoms, potentially, a fever, tiredness, muscle aches, lethargy, which then, often self-limits itself and resolves. But then in some instances, in cases where it can be quite fatal, such as what we've seen here, very, very rarely, just to reassure people that it is extremely rare, it can develop into more other issues, whether that be pulmonary or lung involvement, where fluid can build up in the lungs too.
And so even though it's contained within physical matter, it's not an airborne virus. What you're saying is that you can inhale that physical matter. Have I understood that correctly?
Yeah, sure. So you can inhale the viral particles, but it's very, very rare for it to be transmitted through airborne material, so through coughing and sneezing. There's only one strain of the hantavirus that does that, and it's very rare for it to do that. It's called the Andes strain, which is from South America. So that again, you need to be in close proximity and exposure within, a very close range for a prolonged period of time. So it's not something that we typically tend to see very often, and it's extremely rare.
And how do you test for it, Kasim?
There's immunological tests, what we call immunoassays. These are specialized lab tests that clinicians can do to test for it. It's not something we routinely test here in the NHS healthcare system, but we test through saliva, through blood tests, etc., through looking at our own blood to make sure that we don't have it. And that's the thing, is that even if we've been exposed, we have to kind of self-isolate and monitor to make sure that, the tests are negative on a consistent basis, pretty similar to what we did previously with COVID. Not that this is anywhere near on the same level.
And am I right in saying that is it the kind of thing that once you've had it, you've got immunity? You've had hantavirus. Do you get it again every time you're unfortunate enough to inhale rat pee?
So I think it's unfortunate that the virus, as virus behaves, it comes in different strains, and it's very difficult to assess that in terms of immunity. We're never really fully immune in the same way we aren't really to COVID. We can have it before, we can have it again. With the same way the hantavirus is a virus, it can mutate, it can shift. So it's very difficult to have immunity. But again, management's always going to be kind of symptomatic. It's going to be supportive, just allowing the patients to heal and recover within a medical environment.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, GP Dr. Kasim Usmani. Thank you for giving us your time this morning there in the UK. Should we talk to Simon Calder about this? Travel expert. Simon, I'm keen to know from you, my friend, does this mean that people will be tearing up their tickets to cruises? Because it sounds kind of terrifying, and it brings to mind images of, buffets maybe being prepared with a side order of rat feces, which doesn't seem terribly appealing, but you would imagine that cruise ships are a sort of a giant petri dish of potential viruses.
Well, look, your last point is absolutely right, and I am, it is absolutely the case that cruise ships are places where viruses can spread very easily. But it was fascinating hearing from your last guest about much more about the hantavirus. And while it is certainly the case that if you remember COVID, and of course we've seen so many echoes of the COVID time in terms of, well, just very much the pictures you've been using of those people dressed head to toe in protective equipment. It's frightening, the similarities, but the good thing is that this is not COVID. As we know, hantavirus is a very, very rare disease. It's extremely nasty, but actually people are not going to die. However, the vast majority of people, it's extremely unlikely they would ever contract hantavirus, even if you're on the same ship as someone else. This was a very specialist ship. It's an expedition ship. Everybody was sharing tables. They were eating 3 meals a day together. They were in very close proximity. When you're on a cruise ship, you've got a bit more space. Okay. A bigger cruise ship, and also the fact that it is so rare means that the chances of anybody catching it simply wouldn't be on my risk register.
Are you a fan of cruises, Simon?
I go on lots of cruises. The reason I say that rather than yes, I love them, is that my family love them, and I am a willing participant. So, but I tell you what, the image of cruising has undoubtedly been hit by this, particularly I think expedition cruises. You can see this beautiful small ship, and I was actually on one in February. Pretty much exactly the same size, also sailing from Ushuaia, and that there were similar number of people, about 150 people on board, and it was great. And not for one moment did I worry about this, but the image of cruising has been damaged, just as it was, if you remember, at the start of COVID. Diamond Princess, this ship,
the Diamond Princess, yeah,
and here we are again. And I tell you what, it even goes beyond cruising. I very strongly suspect that one reason the Canary Islands government didn't want this ship anywhere near them was because there will be some people, I'm afraid, who will think, oh, I don't want to go to the Canaries. They've got a plague ship there. That is absolutely ridiculous because nobody is going to get anywhere near it. But that, I think, is the case.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you, Simon. We didn't have time to ask you what your family love about cruises, but we will have that conversation another day, I am sure. Travel expert Simon Calder there. I don't know if I've got time to ask you guys about your cruise experiences now. I think we've got to go for a very quick break, but we are going to talk about this after the break because you've been on some, you haven't, I have. Mine was hell, but I'll tell you about it in just a minute. The Metro is splashing this evening on the SOS Save Our Summer. We're going to be talking about that. And I'm going to ask my panel if they are cruising fans or not. I know Christo is. Of course he is. Don't go anywhere. This is The Late Show Live.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB Newsroom to every corner of Britain.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK. GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there.
with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again. To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, I think we're going into the papers, are we, at this point in the evening? We're going to have a look at the front page of the Metro. 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. The Metro, SOS, Operation SOS, Save Our Summer, says the Metro. The Sun, are we talking about this now? I think we're talking about this now. I have no idea what's going on. Right, let's talk about this. Save Our Summer. This presumably is about the fact that we have no fuel. I'm guessing what this story is about because I haven't seen it. Christo, tell me what this is about. Save Our Summer. Go on, Christo.
Hi, Bev. You're absolutely right. It's about the fact that obviously they're hoping that there is some sort of deal over the Strait of Hormuz and Iran, and that Trump is successful, or that some sort of deal is struck, so that therefore people who want to get on planes, as opposed to cruises, shall we say, though sometimes both those modes of transport are involved, they can still go on holiday. It reports on the fact that 13,000 flights worldwide so far have been cancelled, and obviously there is the potential, due to a shortage of jet fuel, of some travel misery over the course of the next few months. Hence, Save Our Summer. Operation Save Our Summer, they say. Hope for a holiday flights as oil prices dip over potential US peace deal. Trump tells Iran, if you don't agree, bombing restarts and it will be even worse.
Which is just nightmarish because, you know, Richard, I don't know about what it's like in this country. I'm sure it's exactly the same. Well, it's not the same, quite the same here in America, because you have such lovely weather all year round in some states. But in the UK, some of us, like, some people live for their weekly 2-week summer holiday, and this will be devastating news. The holidays are expensive. Everything's expensive at the moment. Holidays are expensive. People will have spent thousands of pounds on their holiday. They'll be gutted to think it might get cancelled because of this.
I mean, we've already had an airline, Spirit Airlines in the US, which is kind of a low-cost airline, that
I've pledged $90 to be. Have you seen the Spirit 2.0? So Spirit Airlines have went under this week, and now they're saying, actually on TikTok, all of these people are going in and saying, we're going to buy Spirit Airlines, and I've pledged $90 to be a part of buying Spirit Airlines.
I'm sure they'll give you a good deal if they come back.
It's basically
but it was the elevated price of gasoline that they hadn't hedged, which a lot of these big airlines do. They have hedges against price fluctuation, and they had it, and that's what did them in. But yes, no, I think if your summer is predicated on flying, you name it, fill in the blank, it's devastating. I actually have a lot of travel plans, and thank God I usually am one of these people that like makes my air reservations the first day that you can.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's good from a cost standpoint, but right now I'm quite relieved.
I'm just sort of baffled by this because we know that UN's Agenda 2030 is about travelling less and being surveilled. You will own nothing, you will be happy. Like, we know what these global goals are. So therefore, how does the Iran war play into this? Because there'll be globalists sat with their hands, rubbing their hands with glee that this is that we're all going to be sat at home and not travelling anywhere.
We've also got to remember that the cost of energy in the UK is far more expensive than a lot of parts of the world, including the US, because of net zero policies. So the UK government are actively making Britain poorer. That has an effect on absolutely everything in the economy. It has an effect on businesses. It has an effect on household energy bills. And of course, it has an effect on your holidays. And it means that if you are a British company, it's far more difficult to be able to travel within the UK. So I like going down the weekend when I lived in the UK, down to Cornwall. I thought it was lovely to go down by the seaside, have a Cornish pasty, enjoy some Cornish ice cream, enjoy the nice weather when it was the summer. Beautiful. But the cost of actually driving down to Cornwall is honestly often more than the flight is to go to Barcelona or the flight to anywhere in Europe.
If you're going from London to Cornwall this summer, it's going to be £100 of fuel easily just to get there, and another £100
Well, on a normal situation without this war occurring, it is so expensive. Petrol is so expensive in the UK.
Can I just say one quick thing?
Yeah.
One beneficiary of this is China, because they've been now a leader on electric vehicles and solar panels and wind turbines. I just booked a flight from Malta to Sicily, 18 pounds on Ryanair. I mean, before.
Is that to Taormina?
Yes.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Before, of course, they had like getting a seat and getting some luggage, whatever. It ends up, but still, and I wonder whether a month or two from now that's going to be quadruple.
It is, but I'm very torn about this because I want to encourage people to stay in the UK and holiday in the UK, and like you say, go down and buy your Cornish pasty and your cream tea and go to Manchester and have a cone of chips or whatever it is that you want to have. They're still selling cones.
How great would it be
and support the
if
UK.
Brits were so rich that they could have multiple holidays in the year, that actually on a weekend they could drive down to Cornwall, but they could spend their 2-week holiday going abroad, going to somewhere in Europe and getting a bit of a tan. How how great would it be, Bev, if Brits were richer like that?
Which is not. Just remind ourselves that we used to be like that.
Yes.
Only until fairly recently, spending a weekend away or driving up to Blackpool for the weekend didn't break the bank.
No.
I would go back to 2019. Everything got expensive after that.
Well, I would say before 2008, the UK were entirely on par in terms of our GDP per capita, how rich the UK was before 2008. After 2008, the UK implemented so many regulations, high taxes, swathes of red tape that make Brits poorer.
Yeah, absolutely. Joining with more to come in the next hour, I'm going to be talking to Seb Gorka about America's approach to terrorism after the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a bit of a cool start out there for many. Generally a fine day with quite a bit of cloud, but some sunny spells. There are a few showers around, particularly across parts of Scotland. 1 or 2 this morning in southwest Scotland, the odd one here and there, but I say most places starting dry. I've had a bit of a chilly start where we've had clear skies through the night, but that does mean some spells of sunshine coming through and a mix of sun and cloud really through the day for most. A bit more showery rain crossing through central, then eastern Scotland with some more rain coming into the northwest later on. The odd shower for Northern Ireland. It's a bit warmer than yesterday, particularly across the eastern side of England. You notice here temperatures a few degrees higher, but it has been pretty chilly, so we're only talking temperatures back closer to average. We'll see more showery rain coming in across the Highlands and the Western Isles through the afternoon. Always the potential for further showers too on the east coast of Scotland and through the central belt. And things turning a bit more showery this afternoon for Northern Ireland. For most of England and Wales, though, it's looking dry. The odd heavy shower possible over North Wales, perhaps even northwest England, but any showers elsewhere, say, very few and far between. And as I said, perhaps feeling a little bit warmer than it did yesterday. Temperatures will drop away overnight where we've got the clear skies, and we have more cloud coming into Scotland with further outbreaks of rain trickling in here. The odd shower again for Northern Ireland, North Wales, northwest England, but most of England and Wales having a dry night. Again, where we've got clear skies, temperatures will fall away, potentially not far off freezing to start Friday, but for many it will be quite a cloudy start, that cloud helping to keep the temperatures up. And then again tomorrow it'll be a largely dry, bright day, some sunny spells, but perhaps a greater chance of seeing some showers breaking out across the south as we go through Friday afternoon. Again, some outbreaks of rain across Scotland, but looking a bit drier in the far northwest as well. Looking a bit chillier here though, only single digits elsewhere with some sunny spells, the mid to maybe even high teens.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there.
with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast,
Every morning from 6 a.m.
only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change. From the first result to the inevitable aftermath. We'll be across it all. Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. tomorrow night, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Does Chopper need a coffee? Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good evening, good morning from Washington DC. This is GB News with the stories shaping Great Britain and the United States of America.
We are restoring peace through strength. We're all over the world.
The American president has signed a new counterterrorism strategy targeting Islamist terror groups, cartels and Antifa. Deputy Assistant to President Donald Trump and Senior Director for Counterterrorism, Seb Gorka, joins me shortly with all the details. Also tonight, a shocking new report revealing anti-Semitic attacks have skyrocketed across America. We'll bring you the details on that shortly. It feels rather familiar to what's happening in the UK, doesn't it? Also tonight.
Does anybody in the audience have a gun? Raise your hand.
A fresh gun control row has broken out with the Trump administration at the centre of it. I'm going to speak to an expert who will tell me what it would take for a ban on assault weapons. Also,
the idea that there would be life on other planets that may be visited here that would not at all shock or surprise me. Have you ever looked into it?
We're looking at it.
lots of talk across America today. We are finally going to see the release of the alien files. I'll speak to a UFO expert about whether this is just a distraction or are we really going to learn the truth about alien life forms. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Still with me in the studio this evening, Democratic strategist Richard Goodstein is here, reporter at Reason Magazine Reem Ibrahim, and in London, broadcaster and commentator Christo Fufas. Thank you all, guys, and thank you at home for getting in touch. gbnews.com/your say at home to let us know your thoughts this evening. Get involved, be our fourth panelist. But moving on to our main news this evening. The American president has signed a new national counterterrorism strategy that focuses on hemispheric threats, including violent secular political groups whose ideology is anti-American, radically pro-gender, or anarchists. They have said that they want to demoralise, degrade and delegitimise the ideologies of groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They said it's a driving principle that America is the homeland and must be protected. With me now to tell me all about it is Deputy Assistant to President Trump and Senior Director for Counterterrorism, Dr. Seb Gorka. Seb, thank you so much for joining me this evening. So tell me about this strategy, Seb, and how is it different to what America was already doing?
Oh my gosh, Bev, it couldn't be more different because we're not using counterterrorism and national security tools to persecute those we politically disagree with. The Biden administration did exactly that. They called Catholics who go to Latin Mass domestic terrorists. They used armed agents of federal law enforcement to raid the home of a former president. They even put politicians who agreed with President Trump, but who had been Democrats, like Tulsi Gabbard, on terrorist no-fly lists. We are not allowing politics to be perverting national security. We're getting back to real threats, whether they are jihadists, whether they are cartels, or whether they are violent, left-wing, anarchists, extremists, groups like Antifa, who target conservatives and killed my good friend, Charlie Kirk.
So you're reframing, therefore, Seb, the definition of terrorism being less about the thought police and clamping down on free speech, maybe, and focusing on who you see as truly the bad guys. Is that an easy definition to conclude and to come up with? Who would fall into that Venn diagram of a focus for America Now?
Well, look, it's not a reframing. That's kind of left-wing terminology. It's actually based on reality. If you look at the transgender, non-binary individuals who have slain innocent Americans, often at Catholic schools, little children at Christian churches, gunned down by these people who have been infected with a political mind virus. If you look at the left wing having normalized political violence, members of Congress, the former Democrat Attorney General, even Biden himself from the hustings saying, I'm going to take Donald Trump behind the sheds and beat him up. Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker of the House, saying, I'm going to punch him on the nose. That is the normalization of violence. You cannot find that on the political right. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on those who incite violence and who practice violence, and we're going to stop them before they kill innocent Americans, whether they're members of Al-Qaeda, whether they're members of Antifa, or whether they're members of the cartels that have killed hundreds of thousands of Americans each year with the fentanyl they flooded into this country under the open borders regime of the Biden-Harris years.
And how supportive was President Trump of this vision, Dr. Gorka?
Look, I've worked with President Trump since 2015. I now have the highest honor. I don't know what I'm going to do next. You know, I run counterterrorism for him. My team and I drafted the strategy for the most powerful man in the world, the most consequential president of the modern age. Yeah, we look, it's an honor to work for him. His forward is very clear. Read the whole thing. It's on my Twitter feed. It's 16 pages. Just the president's one-page forward is very clear. It ends with this message, Bev. If you plan to kill Americans, or if you have killed Americans, we will find you and we will kill you. It doesn't get simpler than that.
Now, anyone that can hear your accent, Seb, will know that you've spent a lot of time in the UK, and in fact, you went to school, didn't you, in London? Where do you see our two countries now, specifically in terms of counter-terrorism? Has this new national strategy moved our two countries even further apart?
No, not at all. I wouldn't say that. So, look, I'll be meeting with representatives of the British government in just 48 hours' time. And the fact is, when it's the professionals, the operators who I've met with, I've had multiple trips to the UK since I took on this position. So whether it's the police, MI5, MI6, whether it's the special forces at Hereford and elsewhere, the professionals utterly get it. Whether or not political leaders, policy advisors do is another question. But let me be clear, you saw just, what was it, a few days ago, the incredible convivial atmosphere between King Charles and President Trump here in the United States. So we would like all of our European allies to be good, steadfast counter-terrorism partners. But we are concerned. If you listen to my immediate boss, Secretary Rubio's speeches about the danger to free speech in Europe, if you listen to J.D. Vance's Munich speech a year ago, or if you listen to President Trump, we take very seriously threats to our common civilizational values, and we'd like to see all of our allies return to the civilizational values that our republic is fighting for right now.
We're having, as you know, Seb, a problem in the UK with anti-Semitism. We're about to do a story to show that you are experiencing the same kind of hatred here in America. Can you see anything that we could be doing differently in the UK around that particular conversation? And partly maybe that is calling out Islamism where we see it.
I know my friends at GB News always want me, because of my accent, to give you advice to the British government. That's not my job. The Brits get to choose their government. I will just say in general, anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine. There is a phrase that is, you know, across jihadi ideology. First, we come for the Saturday people, then we come for the Sunday people. The enemies of the jihadists are Jews, are Christians, and apostate Muslims. The rise in anti-Semitism we are witnessing in many parts of the world is a clear signal that things are out of control and people are being permitted to incite violence that leads to terrorist acts. When you permit individuals to chant from the river to the sea, which is a genocidal phrase calling for the obliteration of the Free State of Israel, sooner or later, somebody will take up arms to make that a reality. So as a survivor, a famous survivor of the Holocaust once said, when a group of people persistently call for your murder and for your obliteration, sooner or later, you should take them seriously. So we understand the connective tissue between anti-Semitism and terrorist violence.
But you also, Seb, I know that you support peaceful protests and I know that you support free speech as well. How do you square those two challenging issues that we have to have protests on the street of London, but obviously this is becoming problematic? How do you square that circle?
No, look, in our Constitution here, we have freedom of speech. It's enshrined in the founding document of our nation. But there's freedom of expression, and then there's incitement to violence. And then the most useful tool we have here in terms of preliminary identification of threats is money flows. It's very, very suspicious when you see individuals who aren't just chanting from the river to the sea or bring the Intifada home, but have exactly the same placards as they march down the high street. Who funds those? Are there foreign actors? Are there foreign inimical nations that are sending funds to incite violence inside our countries? Scott Bessent at the Treasury is on the case. Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, is on the case. If it's one thing to express your views, of course, but when the goal is to destabilize the country, to target an ethnic or religious minority, or to take unconstitutional actions against the nation, we draw the line.
OK, and you always draw that line very clearly, and I feel like I should apologise for my use of left-wing ideology when I talked about reframing the debate. You'll have to explain that to me in more detail, Seb, over a glass of wine in this town very soon. Thank you so much, Deputy Assistant to President Trump and Senior Director for Counterterrorism, Dr. Seb Gorka there. I can feel you waiting to explode there, Reem Ibrahim. She was desperate to get in there. What was winding you up about what Seb said then?
The absolute contradiction when it came to, I'm glad you asked about free speech, because you cannot genuinely say saying the words "from the river to the sea" is an incitement to violence that violates the First Amendment. That's just absolutely insane. Saying the words "from the river to the sea" should not be illegal in any free country, in any free society. We cannot be in a situation where free speech is only defended for speech that we agree with. Well, I don't agree with those protests, but my God, I will defend their right to say what they say, because that's what free speech means. We must defend the grotesque, and I will go as far to say you must be allowed to be racist. You must be allowed to say anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, racist things, because that is what free speech means.
I agree with you, because I also like to know where the racists and the sexists and the anti-Semites exist. And if we shut down speech, we don't actually know who those people are. But to Seb's point, I think he explained it, Richard, when he was saying that there is something about these protests which demonstrates a deeply organised propagandist political ambition with those amount of people who were there, with these posters, you know, these placards paid for by, well, I don't know, maybe Soros and co. Who knows?
I know that's kind of a view to kind of delegitimize these, that somebody's out there who's really got is like the puppeteer controlling this, is calling all the shots. You know, if you look at a sign at a Trump rally, signs at a Trump or any political rally, you'd see the same kind of posters that were not made in your basement. Okay, so but I totally agree with Reem on the notion that free speech is free speech. Famously, there was a Nazi rally years ago in a town in Illinois that was very Jewish, and very prominent Jewish lawyers, I think maybe even Alan Dershowitz, stood up for the right of these Nazis to do it. It was very inflammatory, but they said it's free speech, and yet, think about some of the things that are said about Jews. If they were said about blacks, people who said them would be shunned. Right, there would be a different reaction than what we have now, and I think that's the thing that people kind of lose track of a little bit. It's not to say it's illegal, but I think the society would be well within its rights to react differently to it than they would if it was, again, saying the same thing.
But there's something unique about the correlation that people draw between the actions of Netanyahu, bombing particularly, I'm thinking about Palestine, and Jewish people living in a city thousands of miles away.
Right? Yeah, you're absolutely
that's
right.
a very specific conflagration of two things, which doesn't happen with black people. It doesn't happen with women.
Well, it doesn't happen with any other country. I mean, I don't hear anybody asking me what I think about what the Egyptian government are doing, because you wouldn't, because I don't live there. I've never lived there. You know, you would look at somebody and say, where you're from, you are responsible for that government. I mean, my God, I don't want to be responsible for what the British government are doing.
Well, exactly. I'd be appalled if anybody found me culpable for those decisions.
Well, it's anti-Semitism. It's people wanting to direct their hatred to Jewish people, and I do find it fascinating that the Arab-Israeli conflict has stirred up so much emotion in people in the West, specifically because there are so many other conflicts going on exactly the same time that do not get nearly enough media attention. You've got the crisis in Sudan, you've got the Uyghur Muslims in China, you've got so many different conflicts across the entire world where more people in terms of numbers are actually being killed by a government. And where was the outrage by these sort of these kind of people when 40,000 people were killed by the Iranian regime? None of these people are out there protesting in the same way, and you will not hear somebody say to an Iranian in America, why have you done this why has your government done this? Nobody would say that. So why is it Jewish people who have nothing to do with the Israeli government, have nothing to do with Netanyahu and their government's actions, end up getting blamed, or indeed I think asking the question to a Jewish person is almost too odd.
Let's go to Christo on that, and your reaction to what we heard then from Seb Gorka, Christo, about how this administration, I think I probably stand by my terminology of reframing the definition, because he said it was a left-wing statement, that is a left-wing concept. But I think the idea of reframing is quite useful. Redefining. I don't know what else, what other word you would use to talk about the changes they're making to the terrorism. But in terms of what we heard there from Seb, Christo, what struck you about that very forthright defence of the new terrorism strategy here in America?
Well, reading the actual detail of it, when I first started to read about it, just before you spoke to Seb Gorka about it, my heart also sank when I saw that it was discussing those who have particular views. And I'm not saying views that are violent. I'm talking about, radically pro-gender, for instance. And then I realised that radically is the word, isn't it? And this strategy isn't about trying to shut down views. It's trying to shut down those people that act in a radical manner as a result of those views. And that will be the word, I think, that will do a lot of heavy lifting in this, but that is the most important views. I don't give two hoots. If you want to talk about, we can talk about the anti-Semitism side of things. If you want to criticise Israel, criticise Israel. If you want to be as pro-gender as you like, be as pro-gender as you like. The moment you become a radical...
I'm basically an anarchist.
But the moment...
She's quite a noisy one at times as well, to be fair.
Yes, on your side, they're telling you to stop shouting, Reem. I will say that. but
it's not me writing that, but
it's the moment that your anarchism or your stringent views cross over into radical violence, and that's absolutely reasonable. Absolutely reasonable, I think.
Yeah, I think it's very clear. It's so muscular when you hear this government talk, isn't it, about these sorts of issues. The way that they communicate the message is just so different to what we get in the UK. It never fails to amaze me. Maybe you've only started shouting, Reem, since you moved to America, because frankly, it's what everybody does here. I'm kind of not surprised.
No, I was shouting before.
Well, that's true. But in terms of I just kind of want to reflect a little bit more on this idea that the anti-Semitism problem is the extrapolation, Richard, of a leader who has taken decisions on behalf of his country in terms of Netanyahu, which many people think have been disproportionate, and how people reflect that onto every Jewish person in the world. It doesn't happen with any other country, does it? I can't think of anybody, Richard.
No. I mean, again, imagine an Irish person. I mean, Jews are getting attacked out of nowhere on the streets of the U.S. Because they're obviously Jewish for whatever they're wearing, their hair, whatever it is. Imagine if an Irish person in the U.S. was attacked for something that because the Irish government was doing something that was objectionable or whatever. You're right. We can't think of an analog because there is no bias that goes back historically as long as anti-Semitism does. It's sad, and there's books obviously been written about it. But that's where we are. But as I said, I think whether it's governors, mayors, the president, and other leaders around the world need to call this out and again shun people, put the spotlight on it in a way that just doesn't seem like, oh yeah, there's a right to free speech, boys will be boys. No, I mean, we're not going to arrest these people for saying it, but some action needs to be taken to show that we don't consider it acceptable either.
Yeah. Okay, right, moving on. Earlier this week, the Trump administration filed a lawsuit against the city of Denver over its assault weapons ban. Now, this is a story you wouldn't get in the UK. The legal action comes after city officials refused a prior demand from the Department of Justice to repeal the law, which makes it a crime to possess certain types of firearms. The ban has been in place since 1989, but Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche says Denver's ban on commonly owned semi-automatic rifles directly violates the right to bear arms. Now, a top Department of Justice official says the lawsuit could lead to a Supreme Court decision legalising the AR-15 semi-automatic rifle across the United States. So let's talk now, before I come to my panel on this, because I know that you guys have very strong opinions on this as well. Let me talk now to the professor at State University of New York, Cortland, and author of The Gun Dilemma and the Politics of Gun Control, Robert J. Spitzer. Robert, thank you for joining us on The Late Show Live. Can you give an idiot's guide to a British audience, please, about the significance of this legal action and what it might mean?
Yes, there are several points to make. The headline about this is that it is the Trump administration's Justice Department that is bringing this action. And that's significant because it's the Civil Rights Division of the Trump administration, of the Justice Department. And the Civil Rights Division historically has brought actions in defense of African Americans or women or various minority groups when they were subject to discrimination or invidious treatment. But the Trump administration has done something that no administration has done before. It's decided that violations of Second Amendment rights, however it might define them, represent an infringement on civil rights or civil liberties. And so they are moving against this law in the city of Denver, Colorado. Now, why they picked the city of Denver is anyone's guess. The law has been in place since 1989, which is the year that a couple of states enacted their first assault weapons ban. And right now, 12 states plus the District of Columbia have these bans in place. And they have been challenged in court, but so far the federal courts have upheld them. There is an assumption that if and when this gets to the Supreme Court, and the highest court of the land in America has not yet agreed to hear a challenge to an assault weapons ban, that indeed it might want to rule against these laws, but nobody knows whether they would do that or not in fact. not as of now.
What is an assault weapon? You're talking to a Brit here, so guns really don't feature in our life on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Okay, an assault weapon has two basic features that are particularly important. First, it is a semi-automatic long gun. Now, there's nothing unusual about a semi-automatic long gun, and that means a gun that fires a bullet each time you pull the trigger. So as fast as you can wiggle your trigger, that's how many bullets issue forth from the gun. But the other feature about what distinguishes assault-type weapons from a more typical, let's say, semi-automatic hunting weapon, hunting rifle, is that they were born for military use. They were created first in the late 1950s to be sold to the Army to be used by soldiers in the Vietnam War. And eventually that happened in the 1960s, and those weapons were very effective on the battlefield. But as that war wound down, the gun manufacturers no longer had that market, so they got permission to begin to market these weapons to the civilian market, with the important difference that noting that the weapon on the battlefield could fire fully automatic. That is, if you depress the trigger, a continuous stream of bullets issue forth from the barrel, or semi-automatic, or in 3-round bursts. So the civilian version only fires semi-automatic fashion. But the weapon is smaller, it's also smaller, it's lighter weight, it's made with plastic stampings or various kinds of polymers, and it has other features that were derived from battlefield use. So indeed, it did come from that, and it took a long time, but in the early 2000s, sales of these weapons took off in America when a 10-year limited ban on assault weapon sales to civilians was imposed by the United States Congress from 1994 to 2004. That ban expired by its own terms. When it did, sales shot up.
Why would anybody want such a gun?
That is a very good question. And of course, people extol the Second Amendment in the Constitution, saying they have a right to own these guns or any kind of gun they want, even though that is not consistent with American law, nor is it consistent with the history of weapons laws in America. My own research, I've demonstrated pretty clearly in 3 books that, in fact, while we had guns throughout American history, we always had gun laws too. It's really only been in the last few decades where gun rights forces have succeeded in rolling back existing gun laws that we've seen kind of the widening of this, and a very conservative Supreme Court that has redefined the Second Amendment and said that, gee, there is a right for average people to have guns in their daily lives, which was not how the amendment was intended or how it was interpreted. But the thing about these weapons also is that owners want to make a political statement in some cases because they're concerned that they might be banned in the states or localities where they live. They represent increasingly the far right wing in American politics. You saw pictures of assault-type weapons on flags at demonstrations, and you continue to see that. And some Americans find them a great deal of fun because they can receive large ammunition magazines that hold 30 rounds, 50 rounds, 60 rounds, even 100 rounds. And it's just fun as heck for some people to go to a shooting range and shoot them off. Unfortunately, it has also become an activity that mass shooters have found particularly effective at killing large numbers of people in a very short space of time. And that is one of the reasons why most Americans support restrictions on assault weapons.
Yeah. Okay, Robert. Absolutely fascinating. The expert, I think we can safely say, author of 3 books on guns and the dilemmas around them, Robert J. Spitzer there. Thank you, Robert, for joining us. Richard, you're very involved in this topic, aren't you? Tell us why.
I'm an advisor to Brady United, which was one of the leading gun violence prevention groups. I didn't hear much from Mr. Spitzer that I disagree with. So there was the Second Amendment of the United States says a well-regulated militia being important to the national defense, comma, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. So the debate for a long time was, does that mean like there's a militia, something like some military force that should have the right, or is that an individual right? Well, the Supreme Court decided in 2008, Justice Scalia, a very conservative justice, very much a gun user and proponent, wrote the opinion, and he said this is a personal right. But he also said, I'm going to read it, he said, but this does not mean there's a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever in any manner whatsoever for whatever purpose. It's not unlimited, right? There are limitations on it, just like there are limitations on free speech. You can't cry fire in a crowded theater. So, again, we've got now more than a gun per person owned in private hands in the United States. People say, oh, it's mental health. Guess what? There's mental health problems all over the world, but you don't have these mass shootings like you have here because you don't have the ubiquity of guns anywhere but here. And believe me, as somebody who's worked on this issue and trying to kind of handle it, we're not going to take them out of people's hands. Politically and practically, that's not possible. But we could have like safe storage. You could actually have a situation where the gun, you'd almost need like your thumbprint. And that's what would activate it. And without that, you can't access the gun. Well, that would keep people, a lot of gun deaths happen in the home. Kids find them. Spouses get angry and shoot one another or what have you. So there are ways to kind of reduce gun deaths that are not inconsistent with the Second Amendment, but right now, politically, there's no interest in that.
Yeah. Reen.
Well, I disagree with something like a thumbprint because, of course, the entire point as a woman, if I was to own a gun to try and protect myself, because again, remember, men and women are not equal in terms of their physical strength, and I am absolutely no match for basically every single man on this planet. If I have a gun, however, that equalises my power. If you add more and more barriers to me being able to reach that gun, if God forbid somebody was to enter my home and attempt to hurt me, then I am far less likely to be able to protect myself. And I do really think that there is a massively feminist argument for guns. One of the things I think that we ought to discuss, especially in the British context, is the fact that in the UK, we seem to focus so heavily on the tool and not the perpetrator. We've got to remember, whether it be a gun, whether it be a so-called zombie knife, whatever it is, anything can be a weapon. This mug could be a weapon. I could kill somebody with this mug. It is me that's done the act. It is not the weapon itself. And we have to make sure we're talking about this in that way. Now, of course, when you're talking about AR-15s, these kind of guns where they are semi-automatic, they mean that you're able to kill more and more people in a short space of time. But when it comes to self-protection, there is a slippery slope when it comes to these regulations. The UK government have banned pepper spray. As a woman in London, I could not carry pepper spray. If I was caught with pepper spray, I could be prosecuted for trying to defend myself. So I think that when we're having these conversations, we ought to talk about self-defense, but also what it means when it comes to these regulations and whether or not we go down a slippery slope. I will also say, guns are really fun. I went shooting for the first time when I moved to the US and I loved it. I think the idea that you can take control of something and the sort of power that you hold, but also how really awesome guns are.
But is it that fun as to give rise to tens and tens and tens of thousands of people dying? Was that how fun it was? Look, there are.
I'm not imagining.
There have been.
The point is,
there are rules that have been put in place to allow people to keep guns in home for self-defense, but that's not where gun advocates are. They say basically you should take them anywhere. And again, the Supreme Court justice said even that's doesn't work for him.
If your daughter is walking home alone at night, I think that you'd feel far more comfortable her being able to conceal and carry than not being able to do so. Because again, if a man is to attack a young woman, any woman, the woman almost certainly doesn't have a chance. They will not be able to survive. When you have a gun, you equalise that power. And I do think that this is a conversation, by the way, an argument that I almost never made when I was in the UK because it was just so far out of the Overton window. Nobody cared. Nobody found it sort of even politically possible. But we've gone down a slippery slope where we are blaming the weapon, we are blaming the knife or the gun, and we are not blaming the perpetrator.
So you remember there was an incident in Las Vegas several years ago where a man had an AR, one of these automatic rifles, basically a machine gun, and from a hotel room where he broke the glass and sprayed. There was a concert outside, and he killed 65 people. You can't do that with a mug. Okay?
Yes.
You can't go into a church, which happened in Charleston, South Carolina. It happened in a synagogue in Pittsburgh. It happened in a grocery store in Buffalo, and kill 10, 12 people with a mug.
But where is the line then?
Or even a knife.
Right, but where is the line? Because if you're saying, okay,
You're saying
if
there
you
should
can
be not a
kill
line
multiple
because
people, I'm not necessarily saying there shouldn't be a line. I'm asking what the line is, and I am warning against the slippery slope, because when you do ban semi-automatic weapons, then you start getting into restrictions like we're going to make it more difficult for you to even access the gun in your own home. These thumbprint accessing that you were talking about, but also you end up going down a slippery slope. And in the UK, we have banned zombie knives, which literally means nothing. It's just knives that have a serrated edge, and of course knives that have words on them, because somehow that makes people more inclined to kill people. It's ridiculous.
So
we are instead of actually taking responsibility for why people commit crime. Why do you want to kill people? Let's ask that question.
Okay, but if you were in Parliament, would you recommend that the UK government basically model the US, that you have the same ubiquity of guns and the same laws? Well, you think that would be a positive development?
It's not even on the table.
Well,
I would legalise pepper spray, and I would legalise conceal and carry, but again, not even on the table. Nobody in the UK would agree with me.
You wouldn't, because it's insane. Right? You wouldn't want to have.
You think it's insane to legalise pepper spray?
You wouldn't have tens of thousands of people in the UK gunned down too. As bad as I don't think anybody, I don't even think you, if you were in charge of calling all the shots, would think that would be a good outcome.
Safer. It's about the slippery slope, and I would feel far safer walking home alone when I lived in London if I carried a gun, and if some man, whoever they are, came up to me and attempted to hurt me, I could shoot them dead. And by the way, there have been so many countless examples of this happening in the US. I remember reading very recently there was a mother with a newborn baby. I think her husband was out at work, and 3 men came in. She called 911, and they said once they enter your property, you can shoot them.
Yeah.
She shot all 3 of them dead. I think that's a brilliant example of a woman protecting not only herself but her newborn baby. And if she didn't have a gun, or indeed if she had to access the gun by using her thumbprint, she maybe wouldn't be alive today.
But there's also a lot of controversy. Let's bring Christo into this in London. I'm conscious that we as Brits, Christo, we're just sort of listening to this. I know Reem is based out here now pretty much permanently anyway, but that law that you just cited there, Reem, there's been an increase in the number of people who have been shot on someone else's property after they've been effectively manipulated and enticed. For instance, in a neighbour dispute, the neighbour has agitated so that person comes onto their property, and then they shoot them dead. And then they can claim self-defense because and actually black people are more likely to be victims of that particular violence. Not necessarily perpetrators, but they are victims of that violence because it's a very grey area. Christo, when you hear this conversation, well, for a start, I think you could probably shout really loudly, Reem, and if anyone was coming to attack you on the street, you'd be all right. You've probably got the loudest voice
I think they
in
just
London.
run away like, I'm not dealing with this.
But also, what I think when I'm listening to this is how very grateful I am, how grateful I am that we've never opened this Pandora's box in the UK, and we have to do everything to make sure we never do.
I absolutely, wholeheartedly agree. And Reem, I adore you, but I think you've lost the plot when it comes to your idea that conceal and carry should be allowed here in the UK, because you talk about a slippery slope and you say, and look, you've got a fair point. If someone attacks me and I've got a gun in my purse, I can shoot them and I can neutralise the situation, and it equalises my strength with a man. But the slippery slope would be that then that man would probably more likely to be carrying a gun as well, knowing that you are, and so that becomes the slippery slope. Now,
Hang on, let him finish.
But where I do think that there is some middle ground to be gained here is why can't there just be a fingerprint required for semi-automatic weapons, whereas the weapons you need to to load in the US, those concealed ones, those ones you might need to grab quickly, those ones you don't have a fingerprint for. Surely that would mean that only the person who is authorised to use that automatic weapon would be able to. But to your point, Reem, for protecting yourself, that there wouldn't be that barrier.
But if that was the fingerprint of a crazy school shooter, they're still going to be able to use that gun if they're entitled to do so, Richard, surely?
The whole thing about the fingerprint is, again, tens of thousands of people die in the home by their own doing. These are not criminals getting in and being shot. These are people within families or you know, loved ones. For whatever reason, they kind of lose it. And that's what's happening, and that's why, again, this whole dive, safe storage and making sure that people are kind of using them in the right circumstances, children getting a hold of them and killing another child. This happens. It sounds insane in the UK because you don't have this, but this happens here all the time. We have what we call a mass shooting happens almost every day of the year in the United States. Yes, no one would wish this on the UK.
I just wanted to very quickly respond to the first thing that Christo said, which is that in the UK, if we were to make it legal, that criminals would be more likely to have them. Well, guns are illegal in the UK, and we saw a shooting happen in, I believe it was London just last week. Criminals don't obey the law, and so if they want a gun, they will get their hands on it. When you make guns illegal, you take them away from good people trying to protect themselves, and illegal people, those that are still committing crimes, those that are committing crimes, are still able to access those guns.
But there are far more fewer.
No, sorry, but I was just saying your point then appears to be that having more guns in the UK would then perhaps make the whole situation better, whereas at the moment, you're right, there are of course shootings in the UK, but they're incredibly rare in comparison to the USA, whereas more people having guns is going to lead to just more shootings. That's just what's going to happen, and that is the very slippery slope that you said you were worried about.
Well, perhaps we would see less stabbings. I mean, could you imagine if you saw somebody running down the street, like we saw in London, with a knife, you could just shoot them dead. If they are clearly trying to kill people, you can kill them first.
Yes, but then they might be running down the street with a gun instead. They'd be running down the street with a gun instead. So, yes, fine. You know, and I'm afraid it's not a great choice, but if I had to choose between someone running down the street with a knife or a gun, I'd probably choose a knife.
I'd also say I think there is an aspect of this idea that we ought to rely on the police and rely on the government to protect us. But the police and the army and whoever it is that are trying to protect us often end up taking so much longer to get to the scene and to help people. Actually, I do think that there is an argument to be made, especially where you are far away from any other police officer. If you're in the countryside, you ought to be able to have a gun. And actually in the UK, a lot of people in the countryside do have guns. Of course, it's incredibly restricted and licensed. But I do think there is the argument to be made that the government isn't always going to be there to protect you. There's also, by the way, the reason why the Second Amendment exists is because the people in the US actually said, the founding fathers said, you know what, if the government do come out and try to oppress you, you can fight back.
The best argument I've heard for having a gun is because we might have to use it against the government one day. I have to say that I just tap into a rather prescient fear that I have.
Can I just ask Reem one more question based on what you were just saying? Because I'm starting to think, Reem, and I say this with love, is there anyone you wouldn't give a gun to now then if you had the chance? I mean, you're gonna be handing them out as soon as you...
I'm not an anarchist, and I don't believe that absolutely every single person ought to have a gun. I also do think there's an element of personal responsibility. And obviously, children shouldn't have guns, and parents should take responsibility for what their children can access. That being said, I'm just pointing out there is a slippery slope, and when you start banning and restricting some aspect of a weapon because you're blaming the weapon and not the perpetrator, you end up like the UK has, where we have literally outlawed, banned pepper spray.
Okay, and I get that, Reem, but at the top of one slippery slope is a peak and then a slippery slope that goes down the other side, and that's all I'll say.
Do you think we should legalise pepper spray, Richard, in the UK?
Honestly, I will confess to not knowing exactly what... I mean, if you're telling me that's totally banned...
It's illegal.
It's illegal. You would be arrested for carrying it.
Yeah, I would, to me, it speaks to what's the incidence in real life, not theoretical, because we could always come up with hypotheticals or real life incidences where you would say, yeah, had I had a gun, had I had pepper spray, I would have used it effectively. And I'm sure you could come up with those till the cows come home. But again, does it become kind of an arms race? You know, okay, you can have pepper spray, and so can the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and he's hiding behind the bushes, and he has an advantage over you, Reem, because you have to reach into your purse. Sorry, I'm not quite sure that it's to the good.
Bad guys already have guns, they already have weapons, they already have every weapon under the sun because they do not break the law because they're bad guys, or they do break the law because they're bad guys. When you make things illegal, you take them away from good people.
But I think if I was to put myself in the mindset of a bad guy going out to commit a crime, and if I thought that the victim of my crime was going to be carrying either a pepper spray or a knife or a gun, I'd try and match them weapon for weapon. And at the moment, most women are walking around with a handbag, and the most we have in it is a mobile phone. And therefore, the potential assailant isn't also carrying a weapon necessarily. I just think I am genuinely, I love this country in America here. I think there's so much stuff that it does so much better than the UK at the moment particularly, but boy are we ahead of you guys when it comes to weapons and carrying them. No, it's not a vision of the future I want to live in. I can't lie. Honestly, I think everyone in the UK...
Have you been shooting, Bev?
It holds literally no appeal, like skiing for me. I'm terrified of skiing and shooting.
Okay, I would love to take you shooting, see what you feel, see how you feel behind a gun, whether you feel like you might change your mind when you actually physically see a gun. When I went shooting for the first time, I realised, wow, it is not the gun that does the killing, it is the person pulling the trigger. It really is. There are all these safety features. It really is
the person
doing the killing.
Do you know what though? I think if I went shooting, if I went shooting and realised that I got a sort of thrill out of it, I would go away and reflect on what is missing in my life. that I felt empowered by being able to shoot a gun. I'd try to work out where else in my life do I feel like I don't have power.
In the UK,
that is replacing it with.
People go clay pigeon shooting all the time.
Go on, Christo.
Can I just say, remember the chat we were having about how someone can be easily radicalised a little bit earlier? Would it be worth getting Seb Gorka back on the phone for Reem? I'm just starting to think that maybe a few weeks in America and she's going to be on a list soon. Yeah. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah. And also, to your point about clay pigeon shooting, it's generally a preserve of boys who went to boarding school. And they might have a little bit of reflecting to do as well about what was missing in their life, that they feel better with a massive big weapon in their hand, shooting concrete out of the sky. Just saying. Right, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live, President Trump has just been talking at a rally. He's given an update on the Iran war, and his former advisor, Fred Fleitz, is going to join me in just a moment after your weather. Stay with us.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a bit of a cool start out there for many. Generally a fine day with quite a bit of cloud, but some sunny spells. There are a few showers around, particularly across parts of Scotland. 1 or 2 this morning in southwest Scotland, the odd one here and there, but I say most places starting dry. I've had a bit of a chilly start. Well, we've had clear skies through the night, but that does mean some spells of sunshine coming through, and a mix of sun and cloud really through the day for most. A bit more showery rain crossing through central, then eastern Scotland, with some more rain coming into the northwest later on. The odd shower for Northern Ireland. It's a bit warmer than yesterday, particularly across the eastern side of England. You notice here temperatures a few degrees higher, but it has been pretty chilly, so we're only talking temperatures back closer to average. We'll see more showery rain coming in across the Highlands and the Western Isles through the afternoon. Always the potential for further showers too on the east coast of Scotland and through the central belt, and things turning a bit more showery this afternoon for Northern Ireland. For most of England and Wales, though, it's looking dry. The odd heavy shower possible over North Wales, perhaps even northwest England, but any showers elsewhere, say, very few and far between. And as I said, perhaps feeling a little bit warmer than it did yesterday. Temperatures will drop away overnight where we've got the clear skies, and we have more cloud coming into Scotland with further outbreaks of rain trickling in here. The odd shower again for Northern Ireland, North Wales, North West England, but most of England and Wales having a dry night. Again, where we've got clear skies, temperatures will fall away, potentially not far off freezing to start Friday, but for many it will be quite a cloudy start, that cloud helping to keep the temperatures up. And then again tomorrow it'll be a largely dry, bright day, some sunny spells, but perhaps a greater chance of seeing some showers breaking out across the south as we go through Friday afternoon. Again, some outbreaks of rain across Scotland, but looking a bit drier in the far northwest as well. Looking a bit chillier here though, only single digits elsewhere with some sunny spells, the mid to maybe even high teens.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back. Some breaking news to bring you now. President Trump has just been talking and he said that the war in Iran will be over quickly. He was at a rally for Georgia Republican governor candidate Burt Jones. So the president said, when you look at the kind of things that are happening, we are doing that for one very important reason. We cannot allow them, that's Iran, to have a nuclear weapon. So I think most people understand that. He said they understand that what we are doing is right and it will be over quickly. Well, let's hope so. I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio now by former National Security Council Chief of Staff to President Trump, Fred Fleitz. And Fred, I normally see you down the line, so what a pleasure to have you in the studio. When President Trump says this is going to be over quickly, is he right?
I think he is right. What we're seeing right now is a struggle between moderates in the regime. Maybe they're not that moderate, but they're Iranians who realize their country's being destroyed. And President Trump made a promise that he would get this over quickly. So they're talking about some type of memorandum of understanding that would stop the war, maybe start 30 days in negotiations. And I hope this succeeds. I'm skeptical because the Iranian government is broken. But on another level, these people never tell the truth. They didn't honor any nuclear agreement in the past. They're going to agree to something that they're not going to honor. What I want to see President Trump do is to issue an ultimatum. The war's over. We won. If you don't free the Strait of Hormuz, we're going to blow you to kingdom come. If you honor that, if you don't provoke us, we'll move on peacefully. But we shouldn't be negotiating, looking for terms from a state that's been defeated. Well,
one of our earlier guests, Lisa Daftari, who is brilliant on the Iranian situation as well, there was a sort of heaviness of heart around her tonight, and she sort of tried to dispute it, and she said, I am still optimistic that this is going to work out for the Iranian people, but whilst everybody's talking about the Strait of Hormuz, are we forgetting about the Iranian people, particularly the women, and the job that America has to do, frankly, to liberate them with regime change?
Lisa's a brilliant, good friend of mine. I believe that there will be an uprising one day. This economy has been broken. The people are being held down by the barrel of a gun. There isn't money to pay the people. They don't have food. They don't have water. The security services aren't being paid. Maybe this broken Islamist regime can hold on for a while, but I think their days are numbered.
By how long do you think, Fred? If you have
I just don't know.
It's hard to tell, isn't it?
It's hard to tell because we know there are brutal efforts right now to kill people. Just small gatherings on the street are shot or put in prison. But I don't think this is going to last indefinitely. I also think there probably are efforts underway by American and Israeli intelligence to arm the Iranian people.
I did wonder that when Lisa alluded to that potential prospect today. Obviously, we wouldn't know from President Trump or from Marco Rubio talking yesterday. We would have no clue. They wouldn't give away any suggestion that that was happening, would they? But let's hope for the sake of the people that that is happening behind the scenes. You've brought one of your books in here, Fred, which is North Korea, Nuclear Brinkmanship and the Oval Office. Now, you're not here to talk about this specifically today, but I am going to go away and read it. You've kindly brought me a copy and we'll have you back when I have read it. But the one thing that's been occurring to me quite recently is, why has North Korea gotten a nuclear bomb if Iran is not allowed to have one?
Both Iran and North Korea did the same things in manipulating negotiations, fooling American presidents. We had American presidents who made bad deals, but there was an opportunity during the Clinton administration to stop this, and it didn't happen. A very bad nuclear deal called the Agreed Framework was negotiated by Jimmy Carter, which Bill Clinton actually didn't know he was going to negotiate when he went to North Korea to negotiate it. That's why we have to move now in Iran while their nuclear program program is at a very early stage before they have even tested a nuclear device. If we don't do that, there'll be no going back.
So how much of a threat is North Korea? Could we expect President Trump to be going into North Korea and trying to do the same at the moment to try and somehow undermine them militarily? Probably not. And why?
Well, President Trump wants to resume his personal diplomacy with Kim Jong-un to freeze and roll back North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. North Korea has a very good missile program. They have ICBMs that could hit the east coast of the United States. Now, whether they could carry a nuclear warhead is debated among experts. I don't think they're quite there yet. There's issues about carrying a warhead and a reentry vehicle so it isn't burned up as it goes down to Earth. There are concerns that with this relationship between Russia and North Korea, that the Russians are giving North Korea key missile and satellite technology that would allow them to fire a nuclear warhead in an ICBM. I hope that isn't happening, but it is a real concern.
Yeah, and in terms of Iran now, Fred, moving forward, Marco Rubio was beautifully articulate yesterday in the briefing, the press briefing, about the ambition to rid Iran for the sake of the world of a nuclear bomb. How much leeway are they going to be given in terms of enriching uranium? How can we guarantee that they won't have that capacity?
Well, I understand this memorandum. They have to agree to a moratorium not to enrich uranium. We're asking for 20 years. The Iranians want 5 years. We shouldn't agree to let them enrich at all. I would say the president should say to the Iranians, you can't engage in any weapons-related activity or enrichment activity. You can't dig up your enriched uranium. If you try to do that, the bombing resumes.
And how would you know, though? How would America know if they have enriched uranium?
Well, we would certainly know if they start trying to dig out the near weapons-grade uranium hexafluoride, which is buried at the Isfahan nuclear site. This stuff needs significant processing to make it a nuclear bomb fuel. You can't just put it into a bomb. And it's very likely the unfueled, unfinished bombs were also destroyed. But there's activities that we can track, the Israelis can track, and we can take that out if it resumes.
Fred, great to see you. Fred Fleitz there. We'll be back in just a minute. Just have a quick look at the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a bit of a cool start out there for many. Generally a fine day with quite a bit of cloud, but some sunny spells. There are a few showers around, particularly across parts of Scotland. 1 or 2 this morning in southwest Scotland, the odd one here and there, but I say most places starting dry. I've had a bit of a chilly start where we've had clear skies through the night, but that does mean some spells of sunshine coming through and a mix of sun and cloud really through the day for most. A bit more showery rain crossing through central, then eastern Scotland with some more rain coming into the northwest later on. The odd shower for Northern Ireland. It's a bit warmer than yesterday, particularly across the eastern side of England. You notice here temperatures a few degrees higher, but it has been pretty chilly, so we're only talking temperatures back closer to average. We'll see more showery rain coming in across the Highlands and the Western Isles through the afternoon. Always the potential for further showers too on the east coast of Scotland and through the central belt. And things turning a bit more showery this afternoon for Northern Ireland. For most of England and Wales, though, it's looking dry. The odd heavy shower possible over North Wales, perhaps even northwest England, but any showers elsewhere, say, very few and far between. And as I said, perhaps feeling a little bit warmer than it did yesterday. Temperatures will drop away overnight where we've got the clear skies, and we have more cloud coming into Scotland with further outbreaks of rain trickling in here. The odd shower again for Northern Ireland, North Wales, northwest England, but most of England and Wales having a dry night. Again, where we've got clear skies, temperatures will fall away, potentially not far off freezing to start Friday, but for many it will be quite a cloudy start, that cloud helping to keep the temperatures up. And then again tomorrow it'll be a largely dry, bright day, some sunny spells, but perhaps a greater chance of seeing some showers breaking out across the south as we go through Friday afternoon. Again, some outbreaks of rain across Scotland, but looking a bit drier in the far northwest as well. Looking a bit chillier here though, only single digits elsewhere with some sunny spells, the mid to maybe even high teens.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce,
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Brave. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change. From the first result to the inevitable aftermath, we'll be across it all. Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. tomorrow night, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Does Chopper need a coffee?
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good evening, good morning if you're in the UK, live from Washington DC. This is Bev Turner on GB News with the stories shaping Great Britain and the United States of America. A shocking new investigation has exposed billions of dollars in alleged Medicaid fraud in Ohio. I'm going to speak exclusively to the team behind this astonishing investigation at the Daily Wire shortly. Also tonight.
The idea that there would be life on other planets that may be visited here that would not at all shock or surprise me. Have you ever looked into it?
We're looking at it.
That's Sean Hannity talking to Kash Patel, their head of the FBI, because there's chatter across DC. We're finally going to see the release of the alien files. I'm going to talk to a UFO expert about whether this is just a distraction or are we really going to learn the truth about alien life forms. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Delighted to say they're still with me in the studio. It would have been a bit awful if you'd left. Reem Ibrahim is here with me. Richard Goodstein is here. And we've got Christo Fufas down the line in London. Thank you all, guys. Now, moving on to a brilliant story which has been exposed by the Daily Wire here in America. And it frankly should be getting more exposure in the UK, because I bet you we've got something similar going on, because this is about billions of dollars which has been paid for alleged personal services. We'll find out what that might be, for Medicaid fraud in the state of Ohio. Now, the Daily Wire analysis reveals that Ohio spent $1 billion on home care health in 2024. I haven't set that up brilliantly, but let's find out how this works by the editor-in-chief at the Daily Wire, Brent Scher. Brent, thank you so much for joining us. Now, this is a uniquely American story because of the way that your healthcare works, but I bet we have very similar fraud in various other ways in the UK being conducted against the British taxpayer. So just tell us what you guys have discovered at the Daily Wire, Brent.
Yeah, hi, thanks so much. Great to be with you, Bev. It was our reporter, Luke Rosiak, and he's been going through Medicaid data for the last couple of months in the state of Ohio. And eventually we just sent him there to go see it for himself, because what we were seeing in these spreadsheets seemed like it couldn't be true. There were hundreds of Medicaid companies that were almost cookie cutter built the same. They were billing millions of dollars to Medicare, so taxpayer money. And it was for this thing called home health. Now, what this is paying people who are not healthcare workers. And in fact, oftentimes they're just the relatives of the Medicaid patients to go to the homes of them and provide personal services. Now, this isn't actual Medicare. In some cases, it's as simple as companionship. So we're paying taxpayer money to people to go give companionship to their families. What we found when we went to see the companies that were facilitating this home health care was nobody was there. It would be buildings with 90 companies in them, all billing Medicaid for home health, and nobody was there. So it begs the question, what's actually going on? Is our government even looking at the companies that it's funneling millions of dollars through for this supposed personal service care at people's houses? And when you look into the actual people who are running these companies, it just gets a lot more questionable.
In what way, Brent?
Well, most of them, if not all of them, seem to be run by Somalians. And when you look at what they're doing, these people, it's not even their primary focus. Some of them have trucking businesses and home health care businesses and are running learning centers like the ones that Nick Shirley exposed in Minneapolis. And it almost seems as if they realize that you could just create companies that can get taxpayer assistance very easily, and it's unchecked, and you just end up with millions of dollars without doing much work. And what's really troubling when you look at this is it's $1 billion, and there's no way to really know whether any services are being provided. This was a complete black box until the federal government, thanks to Doge and Elon Musk, decided to open up the databases showing where this Medicaid spending was coming from. But now that we could see it, and now that there's finally a microscope on it, people are floored when they meet some of the characters who are facilitating this care. These are not Medicaid, home health, medical experts. These are just people who realized that there was a really easy way to build a government for millions of dollars.
And so when British people might have heard President Trump talk specifically about Somali people in really derogatory and kind of insulting ways, he has been alluding to these, what he sees as an organised, brilliantly organised, effectively crime ring of people in extended families who've moved to America, at least first generation moved to America, perhaps they have children now that might have been born here. But he's been identifying and talking quite openly about the fact that there is not a racial profile of these people, but there is a national profile, an international profile of these people who have been committing this sort of fraud. How relevant is that, Brent, to this? And does it just show as well how people can move to America, and as long as you're capable, you can work the system?
Well, look, I don't think it's a coincidence that Nick Shirley found a lot of these similar businesses in Minneapolis, which has the largest Somalian population in the country. Where Luke Rosiak, our reporter, went was Columbus, Ohio. It has the second largest Somali population in the country. And what we see is that they've almost created this parallel economy. And what's interesting about these home health companies is you go there and they almost look like the exact same thing, one after another. In one building, we actually noticed that the signs were identical. The services offered were identical. The only thing different was the names, the graphics, the slogan. Everything was the same. And we've been wondering, how do they even find all of these patients to go from the need to have just dozens of these different but seemingly identical middlemen? And I think the answer is they're run by Somalis, and they're probably staffed by Somalis who found that they could just, you know, have their friends set up one of these companies, go take care of their family, and get paid for it by the government in the country they moved to. So what we find is that they're actually creating these businesses just to serve the Somali community, and all propped up by the government. So I think what Donald Trump is looking at is it does seem like the places where these systems are set up seem to always be in cities where there's a massive, massive immigrant population, and they don't try and assimilate whatsoever into it. Every single, I don't know about every single, but it seems like almost every single business in these buildings, and it's just a select few buildings that seem to have 100 of these companies in them, are all owned and operated by the Somali community.
You honestly, in America, you make taxpayer fraud. You make us look amateur. Like, we get incensed by people that might be claiming a couple of £100 a week, all right, of benefits that they don't deserve. I mean, some of the numbers in your investigation, Brent, are just astonishing. An accountant who lost his license for stealing public funds opened a $7 million home health company using the address of a convicted money launderer's teenage son. You've got a woman who reinvented her janitor company as a health provider and then billed Medicaid nearly $100,000 for the first month. Like, the numbers are eye-watering. How much good have you guys done at the Daily Wire, do you think, in terms of raising awareness of this issue and getting it on the political agenda? Because thank goodness for this sort of investigative journalism.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing we did was put it on people's agendas who could go do something about it. And it seems like there were no repercussions even when they get caught doing what seems like very fraudulent behavior. There were some audits on companies that we looked at where they found that on the same day they were billing people for home health, so going to the house and providing care, that same Medicaid patient was inpatient at a hospital getting care, which was also being billed to Medicaid. So obviously that's impossible. They couldn't have been getting care in both places. But in the cases where audits found this, the companies were simply asked to refund the money for the home care rather than having their businesses shut down and investigated for what seems like a fraud on the government. In another case, our reporter Luke Rosiak went there and saw an envelope sitting on the door from 5 months earlier from the Attorney General of Ohio Crime Division. It was unopened, and it seems like it hadn't been moved for 5 months. That doesn't seem like a very good investigation. They probably should have followed up and done something when nobody responded to their inquiries, whatever they were asking for. We didn't open their mail, but I'm guessing it was a pretty important letter to this home health company that's billing the government millions of dollars.
And pretty important work by you guys as well. If anybody wants to read about it, they can find the Daily Wire website and have a deep dive into the investigations that you've done, because it is absolutely fascinating. Editor-in-Chief at the Daily Wire, Brent Scher, thank you so much for joining the Late Show Live this evening.
Thanks, Fred.
I've got to give you a right of reply. Thank you. I've got to give you a right of reply. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, in response to this, has said, upon review of this article, it does not seem to allege any fraud in the details provided. Ohio Medicaid's home and community-based services exist to help individuals who can no longer safely perform daily tasks. Federal law requires these programs to cost less than institutional care, and they consistently save taxpayers' dollars versus other options such as skilled nursing home care. Let me ask my panel about this. Richard, what do you want to say about this story?
Well, it's fascinating. When this happened in Minnesota, the allegation was, oh, these Somalis vote Democratic, and the Democratic governor and mayor are letting this happen. They're looking the other way, and it's a horrible pox on Democrats. Mike DeWine is a Republican. He used to be a Republican U.S. senator. He's now the governor. He's suggesting there's kind of nothing to it. Obviously, the word has gotten around in the Somali community that you can kind of get away with murder here, right? And, you know, how was it 100 years ago that the, you know, Italians came over and that begat the mafia? Not everybody and not every Somali, right? So, but somehow or other, this is now well known that you can kind of milk this. Good of the Daily Wire to get to the bottom of it, and I suspect that the fact is the prosecutors in Ohio will do what the prosecutors in Minnesota had done before colleagues of the Daily Mail had gotten to the bottom of it, which was prosecute people.
But also, thankfully, this is because of this government. This is because of Doge. So the Department of Government Efficiency published this massive trove of data in February, and it allowed people for the first time to see what companies were billing Medicaid and what they were billing them for. If it wasn't for that ambition for transparency, the American people would have no idea about the billions which are being stolen from them.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. And in the UK, we've got something called FOIs, the Freedom of Information Request, which lots of organisations do, especially, for example, the Taxpayers Alliance, got friends over there, and they go in and they have a look at what's actually going on and why the government is wasting money on certain aspects of government spending.
Yeah.
It's egregious. I mean, these people, I do think that there is an aspect of this where it's like, okay, well, the fact that they aren't American and weren't born and raised in America makes it feel even more sort of upsetting, I suppose, to the American taxpayer.
Yeah.
But when you are paying tax dollars, the government forces you to give up your money to the government, supposedly for a good cause, and it's going on waste like this. It does feel extraordinarily, I don't know, I mean, it makes you angry, doesn't it?
It does make you angry.
But long before Doge, people were being prosecuted in Minnesota. There are dozens and dozens of people behind bars.
Yes, but this
long before
means,
anybody could spell Doge.
This means that organisations like the Daily Wire can go in and spend their time investigating what this looks like, and they can do stuff like this.
Yep.
Christo, when you're listening to this, I'm sort of angry on behalf of the American people that this amount of fraud and abuse has happened. And people who've come here, predominantly, as Brent was saying, they're Somalis, and taking advantage of the good nature and the generous nature of a state that is trying to look after the people most in need. And I'm sorry, but I would betcha this is happening across the UK in variously different and ways that are specific to our economy and our culture and our country. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I thought you made a really funny comment actually when you said that you know, we're small fry here. I mean, they do it for millions over there, and they seem to be absolute experts. Wasn't there a similar story? Did I imagine this? But was there a similar story about nurseries in America as well that didn't exist, that were also being funded?
That's Minnesota.
That's Minnesota. That's exactly it. That's Minnesota. And that was what triggered, I think, the Daily Wire, because that was an online independent journalist working on X. What's his name?
Oh, I don't know.
Stanley?
Yes, it is Stanley. What's his name? Nick Stanley?
I think so.
Nick Stanley, exactly. And Elon Musk amplified that story on X. It was huge. It's massive. Nick Shirley's had death threats. He's been. I think he was in the Oval Office. But I mean, it's been kind of.
But the videos are
very divisive for his life.
He went in and opened the door and said, "Where are the children?" And these people had, they said, "Oh, just go away, go away." I mean, it's insane.
But these were
claiming
were state
government
funded.
Funds.
Yeah, they were state funded nurseries, and there were no children. There were no children.
But that's because the similar system whereby you could apply to look after somebody else's children, but what these Somali families were doing were going, well, this is brilliant. My sister's got 6 kids. I've got 8 kids. I'm going to claim money to look after all these kids. We're just going to be in the house together all day because we're in the house together all day anyway, and we're going to get money for 14 children. And these families were generating hundreds of thousands of pounds in income into the family. As I say, it makes our benefit fraud abroad look absolutely pathetic compared to what they're getting away with here. And thank goodness for this sort of transparency, because you would never know about it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And we have our versions of it here. You're completely right. We have our versions of people that come here and play the system. But is it wrong that I feel a little bit almost relieved that it's not just us, and that actually on the scale of it happening over there, I kind of think, God, maybe it isn't so bad over here.
Well, as Reem just said, and I totally agree, this is the nature of a government with handouts, unlimited, unchecked handouts to people. This is what happens
when the government steals your money and claims to spend it on good things.
It fails to accept human characteristics.
I agree that governments that create dependence always go down a bad road. Governments that empower you to make something of yourself, always better.
Yeah. Right, let's see what the government will do about this. We're going to talk about UFOs now, because this is a story that's dominating the headlines across the states. The Alien Files. FBI Director Kash Patel has confirmed that UFO files have been handed over and are set to be publicly released very soon. Have a listen.
The idea that there would be life on other planets that may be visited here that would not at all shock or surprise me. Have you ever looked into it?
We're looking at it. Here's the thing. Again,
okay, I want all the details.
Here's the thing. Every other president before President Trump could have said, hey, let's look at that and get the American people the information. What did he do? He stood up an interagency process with Department of War leading that effort to get out the documentation related to everything that you're talking about, not just from the FBI, from the IC, and everywhere else. And so what do? We already delivered our first tranche of information to that committee, and they're going to be publicly releasing this information very soon. We are all for it. There's nothing in this subject that we're talking about that we don't want released. Our job at the FBI is to work with the White House and DOW, give them the information, and then they're going to put that out in a methodical process. And you're going to start seeing those releases literally happening in the very near future. We just met on it.
That's the head of the FBI there, Kash Patel. Also, UFO whistleblower David Grush has said that disclosures will escalate within the next 60 to 90 days. And then, of course, we recently had these remarks from President Barack Obama earlier in the week.
Here's the thing. For those of you who still think that, we've got little green men underground somewhere. Yeah. One of the things you learn as president is government is terrible at keeping secrets. This idea of conspiracy theories, if there were aliens or alien spaceships or anything under the control of the United States government that we knew about, seen, photographs, what have you, I promise you, some guy guarding the installation would have taken a selfie with one of the aliens and sent it to his girlfriend and press him.
So could we finally be on the verge of confirming the existence of alien life, or is it just a distraction? Let's talk to the host of the Discovery Channel's Alien Encounters, Fact or Fiction, Chrissy Newton. Chrissy, thank you so much for joining us. You must be on the edge of your seat at the moment, waiting for these revelations. Is it going to tell you anything you don't already know?
Well, I don't know if I'm on the edge of my seat, to be honest. We've waited, this has been twice that, President Trump has said this in 2 different times of being president, and we haven't seen those documentations yet. And so I'm not holding my breath yet. There is a massive difference between processing and releasing information than declassifying information. Right now, President Trump isn't declassifying, and he has the authority to do so, but he hasn't done that. He could do it instantly if he wanted to. Any president has that power, but he won't. What he's doing now is taking the longer road and going through the Department of Defense and going through that classification process to be able to look at what information they want to release and what information they want redacted.
And why would they want to redact it, Chrissy? Why have these documents not just routinely been released over the years for the public anyway?
Well, there's a lot of national security secrets attached to UAP, potentially. We're looking at satellite, radar, infrared information that is not just related to UAP, but related to all different types of national security issues. So it makes sense that you wouldn't just declassify everything. Also, the fabric of the American society would be would be unveiled. People will be able to see through what the government is doing. And the last thing they want to do is to be able to see that. They want us to be able to control that narrative and use that narrative to their advantage at times when they possibly can, when they're also dealing with when they're dealing with foreign adversaries. So we won't see that information, I don't think, fully declassified yet.
So what kind of things do you think would be revealed that the governments or subsequent governments of the past as well might have been doing in order to control the narrative that they don't want us to know? Chrissy, Barack Obama just there saying the government is terrible at keeping secrets. It's all a big conspiracy theory that we would do anything against the public that they wouldn't know about. Just elaborate upon that for me a little bit.
For sure. There's a difference between extraterrestrial and UAP. For sure, we see them sometimes together, but extraterrestrial is a very different conversation, non-human intelligence. UAP we see could be almost anything, right? It's an anomalous flying object. And so that's why they have the Aero office there, because they're able to look at those different types of UAPs that are coming in to see if there is a percentage, and we see, less than 1% are anomalous. And we are asking questions, what are those? But when it comes to anything that is non-human, if we end up having that conversation, it would change the world. It would change all of our perceptions of how we would see the world, and a massive paradigm shift. So, David Grush is alluding that there will be conversations that, are going to be earth-shattering. He is saying that, and he is working alongside Congress, from what we're hearing, to help push this declassification forward, or this progress forward. But we're also hearing that there potentially could be another whistleblower out, and we'll see what they say. It probably will be related to UAP, but I'm not too sure if it will be related to, non-humans. Intelligence.
Okay, that's really interesting. UAP, that's the new acronym that we used to say UFOs, isn't it? Is that
That's
right?
correct.
What does UAP stand for?
Yeah, anomalous aerial phenomenon, but it also could be, it's encompassed so many different things now. It's all different phenomenon that we're seeing. And so that's really what it stands for.
Okay. Why did they change it from UFO, unidentified flying object? Any idea with the change of language there, Chrissy?
Yeah, it's stigma. Jay Stratton was former intelligence, and he actually was working within the task force and decided to change it to UAP, because when he was trying to get information through within the government about UAPs, nobody would take it seriously. He would use the word UFO, and people would just kind of laugh it off because of the stigma that's been happening around it really since the early 80s. And so now we use the word within government, and it just now has adopted into the mainstream. But that's the word is used now consistently through government, and now within media as well, who talk about UFOs.
You see, I think if there is evidence of extraterrestrial life out there, and it's in these files, there's no way they're just going to tell us that, like, casually. Oh yeah, we have firm evidence of living, breathing, sentient beings that aren't from this planet. Like, that's not just going to be revealed to us, is it, Chrissy, anytime soon, even if it does exist? And do you think it does?
Yeah, that's a good, it's a good question. I do think that there probably is related to something non-human, that, there's so many different accounts that people have said. But the question is what does the government know about it, right? And that's what we're really trying to find out. But if there is something related to non-human intelligence, the last thing they're going to do is tell us, because it will be related in some of the most secretive secrets that we will ever know as a civilization. So at this point in time, I really don't think the Trump administration will be doing it. They didn't do it the first time, and I assume that they won't do it this time.
Maybe there really isn't anything. Maybe that's why they aren't revealing it, because there isn't anything out there, Chrissy. There's nothing out there, just the dark galaxy and a few stars.
It would be the biggest psyop that mankind has ever seen if that was the case. And that's immensely against the law, the American doing a disinformation campaign to the American people, and technically to the world.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then wow, we are part of, I'm alive and you're alive during the biggest psyop that we've ever seen.
Yeah, I just want to bring my panel in on this as well, if any of you guys have any questions for Chrissy on this. Go on, Richard.
So just as a reminder, we're in the Milky Way
Yeah.
galaxy. which has estimates are between 100 and 400 billion stars. And I think there's a belief that most stars have planets. There are trillions of solar systems in the universe. So, just as and Obama some time ago was quoted as saying that it seemed to him just logically that life would have been organized in one of those solar systems. Was it life capable of getting to the Earth? Well, I think the answer is not yet. To his point that you can't keep secrets like this, that certainly has a ring of truth to it. So do I think we're going to have this big reveal that's going to freak people out? No. In fact, I suspect if they do it in a ham-handed way, it will only alarm people, not because of what they're going to say, but there's just like they mishandled the Epstein files. I think they're going to kind of put enough out to make it seem like they're kind of on top of it and they've got it, and instead it's going to be alarming to people and raise more questions. I think the short answer is we haven't had kind of demonstrated encounters with alien life, but just as a matter of logic, it's out there.
Well, I agree with that. I think that we haven't had any sort of genuine interaction with extraterrestrial beings. But I do think that perhaps there is some scientific research on there being some sort of microorganisms, bacteria, something out there that can prove that life can sustain itself outside of Earth. And I think, maybe I've been watching too many movies, but I do think that there is absolutely no way that human beings are the only living creatures in the entire universe. The universe is enormous. It is insane. It is never ending, and there is no way we're the only life.
Chrissy, when you interview people about their alien encounters and you say that you hear these stories all the time, what similarities come across in these particular anecdotes that they give you, and is there any explanation for them that would be logical, or can you only conclude that they are and have experienced something eerily similar?
Yeah, when we look at UFO encounters, we see a lot of shapes, we see sounds. There's something called the 5 observables that came out of the UAP task force in the Pentagon that talks about identifiable characteristics that you can identify when you think you saw a UFO. And so we see a lot of those characteristics in UAP, but also I do agree with the panel. There is life on other planets for sure. It's so big. So more than likely it is. The question is, are they visiting us and are they here? We also have to remember that non-human intelligence can mean many things, right? It doesn't just have to be related to aliens. We see that as a real pop culture, culture feedback loop from that term and what's been embedded into our mind of what an alien looks like. But non-human intelligence can be many different things.
Such as what?
Well, we look at aquatic life would be, non-human technically, that's on our own planet. But we could look at even potentially ghost phenomenon. We could look at many different things that could be potentially non-human. So we have to really open up our mind to what that means, because it might not just be this pop culture tiny green alien or tall white alien, if you like, running around. It could be something really else. And maybe that's what David Grush will be alluding to at that point, of maybe what non-human intelligence really could be from a government perspective.
Interesting. Krista, where do you sit when it comes to extraterrestrials? Do you believe that we are alone in this universe?
No, I don't believe we're alone in the universe, because we are such a tiny little small speck on the universe, Earth, that it would be incredibly arrogant for us to think, oh, well, then we're it. I did once go down a rabbit hole of an author by the name, which Chrissy probably knows his work, David Jacobs, believing, and what he did, he wrote a series of books, and what was most compelling about them was that he looked into alien encounters, and his hypothesis is actually they're here already, and that the number of people who claim to have been abducted by aliens, he went through so many of their stories, and the number of similarities between people's stories of abductions that from people who had never met, had never encountered each other, but had incredibly similar stories of what had happened. And actually, he goes a step further. He thinks that people are here already. There are hybrids, where people who are abducted by aliens, there is a reproductive process going on, and that those people are on this earth now. Now, I don't know if I believe that, but I do think that it is a crazy phenomenon that the number of people who literally ruin their lives by admitting that they believe they've been abducted, and the similarities between all those people, and we don't really pay much attention to it when there are thousands of people that say it.
And millions, actually.
Is that right, Chrissy?
Millions of people. Yeah, millions of people. Millions. Oh my gosh, people around the world. You know, this phenomenon has been going on for more than 100 years. So there's multiple accounts of abduction stories, of UFO stories. There's so much. So if you want to take testimony as evidence, as a point of evidence, then yes, something is going on. And the American government has said that. You know, we are potentially, for sure, not alone. But the question is if they're here or not.
Can I ask Chrissy a question?
Yes.
Chrissy, are there recorded instances in history? I mean, why 100 years ago? I mean, you think about the span of the universe as we know it. What could possibly have started happening 100 years ago? Do we have recorded instances in Shakespeare or elsewhere where things have been noted that somehow correlate with these abductions?
Yeah, in the 1800s, we have lots of different aircrafts that have been, documented what we would allude to be what UAP is. But really, the first pop culture note that we'd all know would be 1947 Kenneth Arnold sighting that he talked about a disc-shaped UAP in the sky, and that was publicized through Life magazine, and it was syndicated through Life magazine. But the original story came from two local journalists that spoke to Kenneth Arnold and reported it in their local paper, and then Life magazine decided to syndicate it. But a lot of people don't know this, that unfortunately Life magazine was actually part of a propaganda strategy board that was within the Department of Defense, and was handling, we don't know if it was UAP, but was influencing Life magazine in many different stories that Americans know and believe in the 1950s and 40s that really then penetrated their culture and influenced them. And if they were doing that to other stories and other cultural footprints, then we can for sure think that they were doing that with UAP as well. But to what degree, we don't know, and I don't know if we'll ever know. Pardon?
Big government, you see. Our psychological operations.
What would be?
We need less of them.
What would be the? Well, we definitely need less government. What would be the sort of political aim with trying to fund, journalists to report on stories that promote the idea that there may be life out there? What's the intention behind that?
Well, in Life magazine, it was more of a Cold War strategy, right? They wanted to kind of deflect away from UAP. Now we're seeing the opposite, right? We're kind of leaning into it. But back then they wanted to deflect from it because they were scared that they weren't sure what they were seeing in the 1940s. And they were worried that if a foreign adversary saw a UAP and thought it was them, that they might press the button and we would not be here today. So they really decided then to use the UAP narrative as a propaganda strategy to be able to temper it so that they were able to control what was going on during the Cold War. It makes sense, but now the question is, why are they leaning into it today? And I think for the Trump administration, it's used as a political ploy for votes.
May I ask Chrissy a question? I was wondering, there is a hypothesis out there as well that a lot of the sightings, if aliens had come and any of these sightings are true, or any of these unidentified objects, that it was to do with the first time that nuclear weapons, Hiroshima, were ever used on Earth, because they wanted to warn us that actually we're going to destroy ourselves with these weapons. Have you ever heard of that hypothesis before?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we see all different types of white papers that have come through looking at identifying nuclear bases or any type of nuclear installations, and seeing that consistently from the I believe from 70s and 80s, but 60s and onward, we're seeing that the correlation between UA and nuclear were 1-on-1. UAPs were consistently observing nuclear sites. So there's something attached or attracted that UAP likes. And really the most amount of sightings really did start after we had a nuclear program.
Wow. Well, I thought this was a bit of a boys' topic, Chrissy, but you've changed my mind on that completely. It's absolutely fascinating. I'm going to be digging out your series now. Chrissy Newton there, the host of the Discovery Channel's Alien Encounters, Fact or Fiction. Thank you so much. When we have the revelation, Chrissy, we'll get you back on, although we might all be walking around with the guns that Reem wants by that point to protect ourselves from the alien invasion. Thank you so much, Chrissy, for joining us. Fascinating.
That is so interesting.
Lots to think about there. Right, moving on. We're going to take, what are we doing now? What are we doing now? Just waiting for someone in London to tell me. We're going to do the weather, apparently. Let's have a quick look at the weather. Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a bit of a cool start out there for many. Generally a fine day with quite a bit of cloud, but some sunny spells. There are a few showers around, particularly across parts of Scotland. 1 or 2 this morning in southwest Scotland, the odd one here and there, but I say most places starting dry. I've had a bit of a chilly start. Well, we've had clear skies through the night, but that does mean some spells of sunshine coming through, and a mix of sun and cloud really through the day for most. A bit more showery rain crossing through central, then eastern Scotland, with some more rain coming into the northwest later on. The odd shower for Northern Ireland. It's a bit warmer than yesterday, particularly across the eastern side of England. You notice here temperatures a few degrees higher, but it has been pretty chilly, so we're only talking temperatures back closer to average. We'll see more showery rain coming in across the Highlands and the Western Isles through the afternoon. Always the potential for further showers too on the east coast of Scotland and through the central belt, and things turning a bit more showery this afternoon for Northern Ireland. For most of England and Wales, though, it's looking dry. The odd heavy shower possible over North Wales, perhaps even northwest England, but any showers elsewhere, say, very few and far between. And as I said, perhaps feeling a little bit warmer than it did yesterday. Temperatures will drop away overnight where we've got the clear skies, and we have more cloud coming into Scotland with further outbreaks of rain trickling in here. The odd shower again for Northern Ireland, North Wales, northwest England, but most of England and Wales having a dry night. Again, where we've got clear skies, temperatures will fall away, potentially not far off freezing to start Friday, but for many it will be quite a cloudy start, that cloud helping to keep the temperatures up. And then again tomorrow it'll be a largely dry, bright day, some sunny spells, but perhaps a greater chance of seeing some showers breaking out across the south as we go through Friday afternoon. Again, some outbreaks of rain across Scotland, but looking a bit drier in the far northwest as well. Looking a bit chillier here though, only single digits elsewhere with some sunny spells, the mid to maybe even high teens.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back. Hope your weather is looking good for you there at home. Right, should the morning pint at airports be banned? Let me ask you, Reed.
Absolutely not. So this is Michael O'Leary, who is the CEO of Ryanair. Of course, one of the most fantastic airlines to ever exist in the world. It means that we can go to Barcelona, have a fantastic holiday in Europe, wherever we are, for a very, very low budget. Now, I won't speak for everybody, but me, Reem Ibrahim, loves a morning pint before a 6 a.m. flight.
Don't be ridiculous.
From
no, you don't.
A budget airline. I do. Weatherspoons. You know, you got to do it. It's just part of being on holiday. It's like, you know, you're ready to go on holiday. I'll go to Weatherspoons, but I went to Greece with my friend. We're like, hold on, it's 6 a.m., but we've got to go to Weatherspoons in the airport. It's kind of part of the process of going on holiday. And I think, I've not been rowdy. I've not caused any disruptive behaviour.
You're always rowdy.
I do on this show, but not when I'm on a Ryanair flight. I'm there on holiday and I'm there to have a good time. And the idea that the government would ban people from enjoying their morning pint before they go on holiday. You know, Bev, we've got a cost of living crisis. People are scrimping and saving to be able to save to go on holiday. And the fact that the government would take away our one small little joy that we have in our lives.
This is because Brits like Reem can't be trusted not to get Richard. Because this is Ryanair CEO Michael O'Leary. He said his airline is forced to make diversions almost daily. Because passengers are drunk and aggressive. And he said, I fail to understand why anybody in airports is serving people at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. Who needs to be drinking at that time? So would banning the
people who want to have fun. This is nanny statism.
Yeah, it is. It is. But then so many Brits that get drunk.
Why does it matter if it's 5 or 6 in the morning? Then they're going to say, oh, hold on a minute, people are getting rowdy at 6 p.m. Let's ban drinking and alcohols at 6 p.m. So then what's going to end up happening is somebody very clever is going to open up a bar next to the airport where everybody will drink right till the last minute, get absolutely hammered, walk into airport security, and everything will still be bad. Look, people should take personal responsibility. Don't be nasty to airport staff. Don't be nasty to your air hostesses. But also, if you want to have a drink before you go on a flight, you should be allowed to without the nanny state telling you you can't.
Christo, what do you think?
What would be an easier solution to this problem would be to ban the existence of Ryanair, because Ryanair has destroyed, as has any other, budget airline, has destroyed the civility and I think the class of flying. It used to be a lovely experience. People used to dress up to go on a plane. People used to actually enjoy a drink on a plane. Hang on. You used to enjoy the experience of going on a plane out with decorum. Perhaps have a Bloody Mary before they get on the plane. The problem is not having the drink at 6 a.m. The problem is the kind of person that is choosing to have a drink and fly Ryanair, who cannot behave themselves, and we will all suffer. Perhaps if those flights cost that little tiny bit more, we would have people who appreciated them more and act in a more civil manner.
Christo, that is so insanely snobby. What you are saying is that only very wealthy people should be allowed to go and fly. Can I just say, the amount of very, very wealthy people that also misbehave on flights, that are so rude to airport staff, why is it that the bricklayer from Essex can't go on his Ryanair flight once a year, take the family on holiday? You want holidays to be inaccessible because you think people misbehave? I think that's outrageous. I think we should allow people to do as they wish.
You are essentially, by advocating for budget airlines, you are, which is very surprising for me, Reem Ibrahim, you are advocating communism. It's a race to the bottom. It's all of us being equal. It's all of us. It's equal misery all round, as Winston Churchill once called socialism. And that is what you're advocating for. I want inequality.
If you don't want to fly Ryanair, don't fly Ryanair. That is the beauty of capitalism. You have a choice.
No, but unfortunately,
idea that banning an airline is not that's communism. That's socialism. That's saying I want to ban an entire company. Now you're the communist, Christo.
No, you are the communist, Reem Ibrahim, because I'm afraid to say, I'm sorry, but what's happened is that the existence of these airlines has meant that all the other airlines have said, oh well, let's scrape back that. You can't even get a cup of tea on British Airways anymore without paying for it. What has the world come to? You can't have a cup of English tea on British Airways. I mean, this is anarchy. This is the world descending into chaos. And why is that? Because of Ryanair. Because of EasyJet.
Well, you know what? You don't need to go anywhere, because you could go to the Lake Districts, because I want to play you this now. Obviously, we know the Lake Districts, some of the beautiful scenery in the world. There's been a bit of confusion, though, between the words naturalist and naturist, because people there may have been close to getting some views that perhaps weren't quite anticipating this coming weekend. Let's have a look at this from Sophie Reaper, our national reporter. Have a look.
the fairest place on earth. The famous words of William Wordsworth to describe his home of Grasmere in the Lake District, which has just been named by TripAdvisor as the UK's favourite holiday hotspot for this summer.
Grasmere is really, as you can see, a beautiful place. It's surrounded by fantastic fells or hills, by a lake. It's a very nice village to visit. It's got plenty of shops. It's got famous Grasmere gingerbread. It's got a beautiful 12th century church. It's just a really nice place to visit and unwind and relax and enjoy.
With Grasmere taking the top spot, fourth place went just a few miles down the road to tourist hotspot Bowness on Windermere, with other popular places in Cumbria such as Ambleside, Keswick and Derwent sure to see people flocking in this summer. However, for one nature festival taking place on the edge of the county this weekend, they recently had to put a warning out to some guests who may have been planning to arrive somewhat underdressed for the occasion. That's right, the age-old mix-up between nature and au naturel has forced the festival to ask any nudists to stay at home. But how many of us would be at risk of getting confused? Are you able to tell me the difference between a naturist and a naturalist?
No.
No, sorry.
No. A naturist is somebody who likes nature and the outdoors, and a naturalist is somebody who doesn't wear clothes.
That's actually the other way around.
You see?
Clearly the terms are easy to confuse, but fortunately any nudists who were planning on attending have been offered a full refund. Just to make sure that any guests hoping to spot a blue-footed booby don't get more than they bargained for. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sophie. Would you like a bit of nudism?
It's really funny. When I told my mother that I was a libertarian and that I believed in small government, she said, "Libertine, isn't that people running around naked?"
Oh, no.
And I said, "No, Mum, it means I believe in small government." She said, "So you want people to run around naked then, do you?" I said, "No, Mum, that's not what it means." She just, I
can't think of anything worse.
I can.
Oh, can you?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, really? Have you been running around?
I'm
Actually,
just
I
saying.
tell a lie. I did go on a nudist beach last summer.
I can think of things much worse, yes. Gun violence, for example, is much worse.
Come off it. What did you think about the nudist beach?
I found myself accidentally on a nudist beach. Let's bring Christo into this because I bet he's got some naked stories. I was in Mallorca with some friends, and my other half and I just sort of we'd had lunch and we were sunbathing, and I said, let's just go for a walk down the beach. And then we walked down the beach, James and I, and as we got maybe half a mile down the beach, we realised that everybody was completely naked except us, and it had morphed into a nudist beach. And so I was then posed with the dilemma of, like, do we join them? If you can't beat them, join them. And it took me like quite a while before I did muster up the courage. I must say I was rather keener than James. He thought I was being a bit ridiculous. But we did take our clothes off. We went for We did, and went for a little naked swim. Lovely. And it was shocking how normal it felt, how quickly you became unself-conscious about the fact that I had no clothes on. I did get dressed quite quickly. I had a sarong as well, and then but for a moment I was like, God, this feels weirdly normal. Have you ever done that, Christo?
I have been to a beach like that in Mykonos. There is a beach where it's mixed, so people sunbathe naked or sunbathe with their clothes on or swim shorts on. But I chose to keep mine on because, well, frankly, I don't even like undressing in front of myself, let alone in front of others. And my husband is particularly grateful for that fact as well. So no, it's not for me. Though, when I did get a budget airline recently, when I looked at some of the football shirts and fashions around me, I thought, you know what? If this was a nudist airline, I would probably be happier.
Do you know what, though? I bet I would have been more self-conscious when I was younger, I think, going naked on the beach. When you get older, you sort of care less a little bit, I think. Oh, go on, Richard.
If you do travel to Miami, you'll know that there's, I'm told, a beach that on a hot summer day, it's totally legal, you'll see 1,500 naked people. And that's true. There's one like that in northern New Jersey that's part of a federal park. So,
I think it's quite healthy.
Yeah.
I think when you're a little bit younger, in your early 20s, and you particularly feel quite self-conscious, I think it's really healthy to see what normal human bodies look like. I remember when I must have been about 16, I went to my first Moroccan hammam. My mum's side's Moroccan, and they're a lovely spa. And you walk in, and all of the women are completely naked, and I was horrified. I was like, Mom, I'm not taking my clothes off. Because no, it's totally normal. Everyone does it, darling, it's fine. But obviously you're in an enclosed space, there are no men, it's all female only. And it was quite nice to just know, hey, that's what normal human bodies look like.
Actually, if I go into a sauna, I will be naked bar a towel. Because I think, actually, if you're in a sauna, I'm not talking about a mixed sauna, I'm talking about like a sauna with just men, and I'm not talking about a dodgy sauna, like in the gym. I find it very odd that people go in places like that and they sort of, cover themselves from head to toe. I think in a changing room or in a sauna or something like that, you should be allowed to not wear anything.
Be free.
But I think your experience, Bev, is what I understand is kind of classic, which is the thought of it is kind of horrifying.
Yeah.
You do it and you go, oh, I can see why people like this experience.
Yeah, it is your natural
freeing,
state.
Right? And I'm sure you didn't talk with people, but but people, I think...
I didn't strike up a conversation with any of those naked men.
I'm told that people do have a way, because those barriers, whether it's clothing or jewelry, whatever, are kind of gone. So people kind of deal with one another in ways that they don't commonly do, and I think it makes it much more social.
Whereas
But we walked back down to our friends who were sat on the beach.
I prefer barriers.
I walked back down to our friends who were on the beach, and they're a married couple, friends of ours. But I said, "You're never going to guess what. You're never going to guess what the end of that beach is like. You really want to go for a wander." And the wife was like, "We don't need to do that." And the husband was like, "See you in a minute."
That's so funny.
And headed off down the beach. But maybe there is a gender divide on this. Not many women that I know.
Do you think that's an aspect of insecurity, that a woman wouldn't want her husband gawking at naked women?
Yes, yes, I think so. Probably. Let's be honest. Yeah, I think probably.
I just don't have any desire to have no barriers with people or to get closer to people. I'm quite happy for us to remain fully clothed and for me to remain distant from them. I have enough friends.
Well, if you go to the Lake District this weekend, then, Christo, you can go and watch the birds as opposed to the naked people who might just turn up to see the blue tits.
Didn't that very pursuit get a load of people some Hantavirus lately? So I'm not sure I will be going bird watching, but thank you for that.
Right, thank you guys. Thank you, Christo. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Reem, Ibrahim.
Pleasure.
Now,
great topic to end on. We can start the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
More stories.
So I will see you. We haven't got a show tomorrow night because, of course, elections tomorrow. It's a completely different broadcasting schedule. Back with Ben on Friday, and then I'll be back on Monday.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a bit of a cool start out there for many. Generally a fine day with quite a bit of cloud, but some sunny spells. There are a few showers around, particularly across parts of Scotland. 1 or 2 this morning in southwest Scotland, the odd one here and there, but I say most places starting dry. I've had a bit of a chilly start where we've had clear skies through the night, but that does mean some spells of sunshine coming through and a mix of sun and cloud really through the day for most. A bit more showery rain crossing through central, then eastern Scotland with some more rain coming into the northwest later on. The odd shower for Northern Ireland. It's a bit warmer than yesterday, particularly across the eastern side of England. You notice here temperatures a few degrees higher, but it has been pretty chilly, so we're only talking temperatures back closer to average. We'll see more showery rain coming in across the Highlands and the Western Isles through the afternoon. Always the potential for further showers too on the east coast of Scotland and through the central belt. And things turning a bit more showery this afternoon for Northern Ireland. For most of England and Wales, though, it's looking dry. The odd heavy shower possible over North Wales, perhaps even northwest England, but any showers elsewhere, say, very few and far between. And as I said, perhaps feeling a little bit warmer than it did yesterday. Temperatures will drop away overnight where we've got the clear skies, and we have more cloud coming into Scotland with further outbreaks of rain trickling in here. The odd shower again for Northern Ireland, North Wales, North West England, but most of England and Wales having a dry night. Again, where we've got clear skies, temperatures will fall away, potentially not far off freezing to start Friday, but for many it will be quite a cloudy start, that cloud helping to keep the temperatures up. And then again tomorrow it'll be a largely dry, bright day, some sunny spells, but perhaps a greater chance of seeing some showers breaking out across the south as we go through Friday afternoon. Again, some outbreaks of rain across Scotland, but looking a bit drier in the far northwest as well. Looking a bit chillier here though, only single digits. Elsewhere with some sunny spells, the mid to maybe even high teens.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me. Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow
politics,